All right, we are live. Hello, I am Excogitatus. I am here with LeftEconomics, who is Ben, and I am also here with RealisticKeynesian, Kurt. Actually, we're going to wait for the live page to load. All right, I think we are ready to start. Hi, I am Excogitatus. My name is Justin. If you guys want to reintroduce yourselves real quick, we
Sure.
are good to go.
I'm LeftEconomics. Ben. It's me.
RealisticKeynesian, Kurt.
At RendezvousWithReason, John.
All right, and today we're going to be just we all have like consensus political views pretty much. We're all pretty liberal, so we're going to be going through some recent events, giving our thoughts on them. We have a couple of major headlines that kind of outline the recent political landscape, I suppose. And then we might open this on up to questions or whatever if this sort of complements the stream. So the first topic on our docket is the recent news with Martin Shkreli. He's been found guilty of securities fraud after he's the guy that jacked up HIV medication prices because I actually don't know why he did it. Yeah, I know he offered explanations on, basically just profit seeking because he had a lot of. He was a new
probably
CEO.
just profits.
Yeah, capitalism debunked. But I know he had a lot of pressure on him to do well as a CEO because he was incoming and he was young. But I don't think that justifies what he did at all. So yeah, do you guys have? I mean, I know the biggest backlash to the investigation itself has been mainly like people think that they wouldn't have because like the price jacking that he did was technically legal. So the biggest issue people have is that the investigation may not have happened if he hadn't done that, and so it was kind of like.
Yeah, I think we need to make something really clear here for the viewers that I know many people are like, oh, wow, he's going to jail, like he's getting convicted. But like, let's make the distinction like you were talking about. He's not getting convicted for the price jacking and all the unethical stuff. He's getting convicted because he ripped off his hedge fund investors. So I think that speaks a lot about, investment law and security funds that you can do these unethical things. These are considered legal, but just doing something over your shareholders, that's a big no-no. And I think that's something we need to look at when it comes to reform at Wall Street and in the investor fund sector in general.
Yeah, and I even would caution using the term ripped off because it turns out that like one of his main one of the things that may dampen his sentence is the fact that his hedge fund, like the people he was managing the hedge funds for were actually like making more money because of he was misreporting funds. I think that's what he got in trouble for. So he actually wasn't losing any money. He was making more money than he would have otherwise, which probably says something about investment structure, at least investment law as well. So it's an interesting situation. I don't know if you guys have anything else to say on it because it's pretty black and white.
I don't really know anything about it, so I'm just going to let you all talk about it.
Yeah, no problem. Ben, if you have anything else to say.
No, not really. Yeah,
it's a pretty black and white issue. Because it's Shkreli's a bad guy. Like,
have you seen his Congress testimony?
No, I didn't see his
It was hilarious. So he was making a whole big deal about how he's gonna school Congress on hedge fund law and everything.
Oh, and he didn't defend himself, right?
No, yeah, he went there and he's like, on advice of my attorney, I will plead the fifth. And the guy's like, and one of the senators actually asked him, they're like, Mr. Shkreli, I believe you commented earlier about how you want to tell us and explain members of this hearing about different Congress. Like, this is your opportunity. It's like, on the advice of my lawyer, I will assert my Fifth Amendment right granted to me by the Constitution. And he did not say a single thing. So I just thought that was hilarious. And he's also famous for the other stuff. I think the Wu-Tang, he was the secret buyer for their album, I think.
Yeah, he's a real meme in the greater eye of the public, I suppose. Because he had that video he made after his sentencing. Yeah, no, after his testimony, where like he was talking about like what his prison name should be and stuff like that. So it's good. So should we move on to the next topic then?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So the next bullet point we have is the fact that unemployment is dropping relatively, and but we're not seeing any sort of real significant wage inflation. So Ben, I know you threw that in there. If you want to like intro that real quick.
Oh yeah, sure. So yeah, like I said, unemployment is going down, and like a lot of people, specifically just like the more typical conservative pages, like to say that it was Trump's. I don't think I'm not sure exactly what he's done so far as like, you know, implementing the tax cuts and deregulation and stuff, but like they often say it's like people anticipating that it's going to happen, and that's what's driving the job creation and stuff. And I know that CNN, you know, the Communist News Network, they have a tracker of how many jobs have been created since Trump took office, and it's just over 1 million. But that is actually off track of
yeah, it's
Trump's
lower than his plan. And actually, I have his Twitter open. He dropped a tweet today that I tweeted out because it was a good meme. He said consumer confidence is at a 16-year high, and for good reason. Much more regulation busting to come. Working hard on tax cuts and reform. So I think that he really thinks that his regulation busting is doing a solid job for the economy.
I don't think he thinks that. I just think he's dumb. Like,
well, I mean, probably, but I also think that it's easy to tweet out, and it's something to like focus on for people who follow him, because like regulation busting is really, I mean, I support generally deregulation to some degree, but you know, of course you need regulation, but I would say that his assumption that it's what's fueling economic growth is really false, because
if you just look at a graph of unemployment, it's been going down since like 2010. Like,
yeah, like I chalk this up to Yellen pretty much.
Yeah, the Fed deserves all credit.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, ever since they've had expansionary monetary policy going, we've seen a decrease in unemployment. But and we'll get to this later.
When will we see like the full effects of Trump's policies? Because I'm pretty sure we're relatively early in the business cycle. So like right now we can assign him blame to some things, but we can't really, like, it's like we can't assign him blame, but we can't assign him credit either. So I'm wondering how far will it be in the economic cycle in the fiscal year when we can finally say, okay, what's going on now is completely responsible with Trump's or his lack of economic policy making.
Yeah.
Which policies exactly are you speaking of?
See, that's the thing. Like, even his lack of policy making should have an effect that we should be seeing in the near future. Like right now, when people are saying the economy is doing good, like we can't really assign that to Trump, because a lot of it is the after effects of, you know, as you said, the Federal Reserve and what Obama did. But I'm wondering when in the fiscal year can we start saying, okay, what is happening now is a direct response to the lack of policy or his whatever Trump's actions are.
I mean, unemployment rate has to eventually hit maximum employment at some point. So I would say probably around 3.5% unemployment. I would be surprised if it got much lower.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, the Fed's hiking up interest rate or the reserve rate this year. Oh, I think they have 4 quarter-point hikes planned, and they already did one in April. So I would assume unemployment would go up.
Who's the chairman? Is it still Yellen?
Yeah, it's Yellen.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I know that Trump had a big campaign promise on an infrastructure deal that might help with employment, but I know that it's more of like a private sector contract, so it's not exactly fiscal policy or anything like that. And that's probably good, because we don't really need fiscal policy right now. I mean, you could maybe chalk this up to like arbitrary jobs deals, but I mean, I don't think you're going to see a real percentage.
I would think the big risk would be a reconstruction of the NAFTA trade deal.
Yeah.
That's what I'm very worried about.
And I know that articles were coming out about a month ago or so where Trump was actually not as hardline on NAFTA as he used to be. He was for restructuring it to make it like, quote unquote, more beneficial for the U.S., whatever that's supposed to mean. So, and people were saying that he's kind of liberalizing his idea on NAFTA, but I'm still skeptical just because he's, so unpredictable with.
Well, he has
all
to
his
run
policies.
again, so he has to, get that populist vote.
Yeah, and I mean, I think
after the healthcare failure, I think it's gonna be really tough. That was his main thing, and now they have to wait one full fiscal year to get it done with the midterms there. I highly doubt. I don't think he can do much with NAFTA either. Plus, let's think about it. For his base, it's much easier. Okay, this, I don't like generalizing. I don't like being that guy, but I doubt 95% of Trump supporters could explain in detail what NAFTA is, what its consequences are, I don't even know how many of them even know what the acronym stands for. So I don't see how that's something that they can relate to and see as a victory. I think they can easily relate to the healthcare bill, but that failed. So
yeah, I mean, I would say that's fair, but I also think that I wouldn't underestimate Trump's ability to sort of make things digestible. So if he's readjusting NAFTA, he's probably going to say, "Oh, we have a big win for American jobs today, big win for American workers." He'll probably restructure it as that, just to make it more consumable for his voter base. But yeah, I mean, I think we're too early on into his presidency to really make any sort of official judgments on his economic policy. But to bring it more back towards the point, Yellen made it clear that she's not changing her opinion on the aforementioned rate hikes that the Fed is planning on for this year. Even though she's seeing low inflation, pretty consistently low inflation, it's below the headline target rate of 2%. It's at 1.7% as of June. So what are you guys' takes on that? I know I'm a little bit wary that that Yellen's not willing to adjust her position on this, because I think it's a pretty decent consensus that 4 rate hikes are maybe a little bit extreme for this year, given the fact that we're seeing low wage inflation, headline inflation rates, and core inflation rates are actually worryingly low. So what do you guys?
I guess I'm supporting her position on this until I see any change. She's I don't know. So I guess this is something we can discuss later on how she compares to her predecessor, Alan Greenspan. But I think she's mostly just continuing a lot of his old policies. Not all of them, but some of them. And I guess
her predecessor was Bernanke, not Greenspan.
Oh my God!
Yeah, the god Bernanke.
Bernanke's a god.
He's a god. Okay, no, I always get the.
Yeah,
I've been reading up on Greenspan, but if
you're
you
still correct. She's continuing a lot of Bernanke's ideas.
Yeah, there isn't I don't see any discrepancies between federal chairmen, and I think in this case, back to your question, I can see how it's worrying to a lot of people, but I'm gonna support her as of right now because she hasn't really given a reason. There doesn't seem to be any potential foreseeable consequences at the moment. So like I said, I'm not gonna give full 100% support. I'm gonna give my tepid support, but as of right now, it is still support as to having doubts about her current policy.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Well, I would like to ask, with GDP not growing incredibly fast, are any of y'all worried about possibly inflation dropping below 1%?
In the foreseeable future, I'm not sure.
I don't think so in this business cycle. I don't think this fiscal year, but maybe in the future.
Are you talking about core rates or headline rates? Because I could see core rates dipping below 1%.
In the short term?
I would say, within the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, so is that short term then? Or no, that should be...
I guess it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, if it happens in the short term, it's pretty recoverable. But if it's a long-term issue, then it's a problem.
I would call it more long-term. I think it's short-term as a, a 1-year thing.
Yeah, okay. Short-term is more
Yeah. So if it's a long-term issue, then I do agree with you. It could be a problem.
I think that Yellen is competent enough. My main concern is with whoever Trump appoints next, or not appoints, but whoever is next in line for Fed chair.
It's gonna be somebody from Goldman Sachs. It's gonna be a Goldman
it's
Sachs
gonna be
person.
Gary Cohn. Is that his name? It's that guy. He's in a favorable lead, even ahead of Yellen, which was actually surprising to me because I think Yellen's. But I guess this is kind of a big issue with Yellen, is that she hasn't really offered explanation as to why low inflation rates haven't changed her outlook on policy. But I mean, she said in the congressional hearing she had, or like, was it like an FOMC, like survey with the Congress, that they were taking into account low wage inflation rates. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, I guess. I think they're still going to go along with their plan to hike the rates. They're kind of low right now. They're at 1.25 right now. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, I guess. We'll pray for the best. But
obviously,
yeah. So, moving on to the next topic, Trump's approval ratings, which are a good meme at best. They're, I mean, the economy is doing, not even arguably, it's doing pretty well right now despite low inflation. But you can argue that that's, if I was an Austrian, I'd say, oh, the economy's doing great right now. But Trump's approval ratings are sitting around in the 40s and 30s, I think, somewhere like that.
It's not like 36, I'm pretty sure.
36, yeah, 36%. Sharknado's rating was 29%, so he's getting there.
Sharknado for
Sharknado 3, by the way. Yeah. All right. I guess I'll start with that. So as you know, Bill Clinton was very famous for saying it's the economy's stupid, and he's like, his whole main thing is if the economy's doing well, then people are generally happy. But I guess we're not seeing that here. So I think the bigger causes, the healthcare failure, that was pretty big.
Yeah, that's
his travel bans, yes, I know the Supreme Court did, reinstate part of it, but the fact that it failed 3 times, that was also a big thing.
Well, the thing is, when you say it reinstated, it postponed the actual hearing, or the actual debate over it, because and that's actually a historical trend with the Supreme Court. They usually don't want to take up something at such short notice, so they usually will postpone it.
So but what I'm trying to say is it's still something he didn't complete it. The wall isn't going to happen. We all know that. So even though the economy is doing well, if you look at a lot of his social and economic policies, they don't seem to be coming to fruition. And then there's, of course, I guess for the American public, his Twitter drama, his leaks with the Mexican president came through, and everybody kind of saw what a laughing stock he was. He's taking so many vacations. I'm pretty sure he's starting a 17-day trip. So I guess people are just I guess when I talked to a political science professor about this, there's going to be a portion of his base that isn't going to regret voting for him. They're just going to double down and keep on defending him no matter what. But I think a lot of the Obama voters that just didn't see Clinton addressing their needs and are now supported Trump because they wanted change are kind of realizing that Trump isn't going to get them the relief and change that they had hoped for. And I think they're a big factor, that group of people that previously voted Obama and then voted Trump. I think that's the group that's kind of really hitting down the approval ratings, because I'm pretty sure the liberal base, they're just going to disapprove of him no matter what. So I think that's how it is.
Yeah. And I think then it is interesting to see how the economy is doing well, but it's not really having an effect on his approval ratings. And I think most of that has to do with kind of the left's response to him, because most of the arguments against Trump haven't been on an economic basis. It's been on things like, banning transgender people from the military, which is obviously unjust, and other his what was
the RAISE Act.
Yeah, that.
Things like the travel ban
the travel ban.
But I'd say also kind of his economic policy. If you consider some of what, like he said, he's going to bring more jobs back. Which I mean, technically, yes, more jobs have been created, but they're basically being created at the same rate. So I feel like people maybe, I know like the coal jobs is something he was pretty big on. Like I think they might be pretty disappointed that their jobs aren't coming back because they're not coming back.
Can I just state something for the record? I hate coal jobs with a passion.
Yeah, they should all get like destroyed.
Margaret Thatcher was justified. Anyways.
It's just like, coal jobs, it's just the natural progression of technology to cut inefficient systems.
It's just
he's just trying to keep us in the past, just so like a few people can have jobs. Like they're not that whatever. Like they're not even that significant of the job force.
And he is a conservative, and that's what they do.
I know that.
yeah, that's the definition. But it's it's like, I mean, I understand, like with coal jobs specifically, we probably should be offering like vocational, like transitional training, but I'd like to see demographics on coal jobs, because the people who are working in coal are like the least competitive. I mean, and this is a generalization operating off of no statistics, mostly my blind hatred of people who work in coal mines. But they're probably like, fairly low income, fairly low education level, just people who aren't, and this is like a very technocratic, like, big, scary Keynesian Zionist term, but like people who aren't like really valuable to the economy, to that degree, like to the future of the economy. So, I mean, I think that at some point, we're just going to have to swallow the pill and like say coal is outdated. Let's start, focusing our education programs towards, alternative energy and like things that will actually help us in the future rather than force us to, cut jobs like we have to with coal. And that was a bit of a tangent because we weren't talking about coal, or like industry adjustment, but it's still a good point because Trump. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I just read an article on the Washington Post that said that the entire coal industry employs fewer people than Arby's. So, is it really that important?
Yeah.
It's important for Trump's votes in like West Virginia, but besides that, it's not important really. And plus, you could, like, if you had all those, because I don't know how many people are employed in the coal industry, but even assuming it is that little, like they could be, like they're not just going to be left completely unemployed, like they're going to go somewhere else, and you could use that, like the newly created unemployed, and you could try and put more investment, like you said, into things like renewable energy, and they could like I know that West Virginia is like the only like state I know that is very heavy on coal, but I think Virginia is also one of them. Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky. And, I mean, mostly the Appalachians.
They all have potential to be like pretty heavy on renewable energy. Like you can build wind farms there, you can build solar panels, you can do that pretty much anywhere. And they should just be focusing on that instead of trying to preserve a dying industry.
Well, according to the St. Louis Fed, there are about 53,000 people in the coal mining industry. That includes administration too.
That's less jobs than Trump has created this year.
That's less jobs than was created last month.
Yeah. So, not even this year. Like, it's such a populist thing. Like, I think that, and a lot of this has to do with like the historical connotation of like coal jobs, because with like Thatcher and whatnot, I think that it's a good like thing that people who are sort of falling to populism will talk about. My low income job is being threatened. How are you going to help me? And it's such a good talking point to say, I'm going to help American workers, but it's really just like, are you helping the American economy? And that's, the major question of populism is whether or not it's helping your voters or whether or not it's helping the country as a whole, in theory.
I think the biggest issue here is that in the election, I think Hillary had a great message, but she just didn't emphasize it. Like, the main thing with these coal jobs is we got to tell people, like, look, coal is a dying industry. Like, let's be honest. You got to be honest with them.
Oh, yeah.
But then you also have to explain that, look, we're going to provide opportunities to retrain you, get you back in the workforce in renewable energy or whatever, similar field of interest. And I think when, like, you got to, like, once again, I'm not trying to make generalizations here, but, like, most of these coal workers, they're uneducated. It's a generation thing. They've been doing it for a long time, and they've been killing themselves too. It's a very dangerous field of work. So
Yeah,
kudos to them for doing it. But like, they get on TV, they're struggling. They're obviously in the lower tier income bracket, and they see Hillary saying, "Yeah, coal is dead." What are they going to think? And then they see Trump, as unrealistic as he is, saying, "Oh, we're going to bring back coal." Like, of course they're going to support Trump. And I think, getting back to the question, it's like, that's why he has a huge coal vote. But the sad thing is, like, we talk about Trump regret, like, there's a good portion of coal voters who are starting to realize that, like, wait a second, Trump's not going to bring back anything. And I think a lot of them, the smarter ones, are retraining, figuring out, getting a new job, getting a new skill set so they can contribute to the economy and provide for their families. But for the rest of them, it's between a rock and a hard place. And I think that's something that the government needs to do. They need to step in and figure out how to do something about this. Because I guess personally, I'm pretty pro environment. I understand the economic benefits of it. And hold on, let me find this quick. But if I remember, the majority of economics, yes, 94% of economists actually support combating climate change. So it's something that's pretty popular in the economics field as well. But I really think that at the same time, not only do we have to take care of the environment, we also have to do something about the workforce that contributes to fossil fuels and the coal industry.
Yeah, well, Mankiw supports a carbon tax. I know that.
Everyone should support a carbon tax. That's dedicated to my boy Connor.
Doesn't Gary Johnson support a carbon tax?
Probably. I mean, every rational person should support a carbon tax, because I mean, it's proven like the most effective way to.
Ron Paul said that it's bad. So.
Well, that's
true.
Yeah, I can't.
Good point. You can't argue with Ron Paul.
Okay, so, and I actually want to make one more point. You said that we should be focusing on transitioning coal workers into alternative energy jobs, and I don't know about that. I think that there's more work in, like, I mean, I know that alternative energy is in the same field, but I don't know if it's comparable to coal mining. It's much less manual, I would think. I mean,
well, yeah, that's true, but like a lot of the same technical know-how, like I was reading a study on this, I can't quote it off the top of my head, but like they're talking about how it's actually fairly easy to, like, the ones who like have been in the coal industry and do have some technical know-how, like it's fairly easy to retrain them, because these are already hard-working people. We talked about how like tough this job is. These are people who have work ethic, and I think that in a sense, a lot of the retraining is just work ethic, taking a year or two to understand the basics and the mechanics. And we've seen it done in North Dakota, especially. I can, as somebody who's kind of been from around that area, when we were having the oil glut, we had a lot of like oil workers kind of retrain and move over to like working with wind panels and solar panels and wind farms, and it was relatively successful. And I think it may be tough to implement that on a large scale range, but I think if we continue with small projects, it's something that can happen. Because maybe it's just my idealist side talking, but I believe that we should give every American the opportunity for growth and prosperity. And if that means that and even for coal worker Trump supporters who probably are the ones who want to ban every single Muslim and probably think Black people commit more crimes, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, I think they also deserve a fair shot, especially when this is something they've been doing for generations, and they should deserve the opportunity to move forward.
Yeah, and I found an article by the Harvard Business Review that said that our study found that this growth of solar-related employment could benefit coal workers by easily absorbing the coal industry layoffs for the next 15 years and offering full-time careers. So maybe it is something that would benefit from happening more gradually. But I think that not focusing on continuing the development of alternative energy, the alternative energy market, isn't going to fare well for anybody, really, because it's really just an inevitability at this point. Because there already are more jobs in alternative energy sources than there are in coal. So
Yeah, that's one thing I don't really get. Like, I don't get why the coal workers don't realize all the potential that they could have working with alternative energy.
Yeah,
Because
it's also
surely
higher paying.
they have to see
Change. It's change, man. I can tell you, as somebody who has studied kind of psychology and evolution, humans very, very resistible for change. As I said, this is something that they've been doing for generations, and the wealth and opportunities in renewable energy are there. But for these people, this is one of those, my dad's been doing this, and my grandpa's been doing this, and the grandpa before him, and the grandpa before him, blah blah blah. Like, it's a generation thing. Sorry about the horrible attempt at a southern accent, but it's like, this is something they've been doing for their entire lives, and human beings as a species, we don't, it's very hard for us to adapt and change. Inertia, the object that's at rest will stay at rest. And I think for these people, despite the opportunities, it's something they may not want to consider. So I think it's like, I think our job, we shouldn't force people, because that's wrong, but we should just be like, here's the opportunity, we're willing to retrain you and work you through this, but if you want to take it, we will support you. But if you want to stay in a dead industry and be jobless within the next 5 years, that's your choice.
Yeah, I also think that a good way to kind of get rid of that cultural stigma would be to improve the education system, because I feel like a lot of the people in the coal industries are just there because they didn't get that great of an education. Obviously, I'm sure there are other reasons as well, but I think that if there are more educational opportunities, then I feel like more people would go into renewable energy.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. We're talking about West Virginia. I don't know about you, but I can't. I don't know a single like good, highly ranked school in West Virginia. Like, I know every state. Like, you've got Massachusetts with like Harvard, MIT, Boston College, and etc. But like every single state, like even southern states, like North Carolina's got Duke and UNC. Like Virginia has got UVA. Like every state has at least one good educational institution that's top ranked and very well known. I can't think of a single one in West Virginia. Like, is University of West Virginia a thing? Like, is it? I don't know. And I think
West Virginia University, but they're not that good.
Yeah,
see, that's the thing. No, exactly what Economic Left was talking about, like educational opportunities. But like, if you look at the state, like there just doesn't seem to be any, and that's, I think, a big problem with what's going on.
All right, I think we've beaten this horse a little bit.
I would like to ask one thing though.
Okay.
Pertaining to different energy sources, what's y'all's opinion on fracking?
I think we need more long-term research on it, because I mean it's technically more sustainable than like just using oil, but I don't think it hasn't been in practice long enough for us to assess its long-term effects, and I think that a lot of what bit us in the ass about non-renewables was how quickly we went into being completely dependent on them, and so I think that we shouldn't make the same mistake about fracking as a system.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't think, because I just think it's more of like a band-aid solution to a bigger problem with non-renewable energy sources. It's just trying to like make non-renewable energy better, but in the end it's going to have the same result. We're going to eventually run out, and so it's better just to get on track with renewable energy.
Yeah. All right. So our next point was Trump's job plan is continuing to fail in meeting his monthly quota of 208,333 new jobs. I'm going to open this article real quick. So if Ben, if you also added this one, I believe.
Yeah. His promise was to create 25 million jobs in 10 years. So that's how you get the 208,333 job figure. And we can actually use this to also kind of lead into our next point as well about the labor force participation rate. Because even though unemployment has been going down, even though it's been a downward trend since 2010 and the beginning of the recovery from 2008, the labor force participation rate has been pretty stagnant since I think about 2015 is where you could probably draw the line. And that could explain why wages have been stagnant as well, because wages they haven't been stagnant. They've been like, I think it was like the rate at which they're increasing has been going down or something like that.
Yeah, well, wage inflation has been it's been low. I mean, it's been lower than the last trend, which was during boom cycle, but it's been lower than Yellen's target for the recovery period, I suppose.
I have a question. How is his how is his separate policy? Like, is this an overall thing? Because I think we were forgetting that a lot of liberal states like California, Minnesota are like starting to implement a minimum wage, or starting to kind of go their own policies kind of away from Trump. So when we discuss like, you know, these overall the labor participation rate and jobs, do you think there's a discrepancy? Because I know the job rate in like places, liberal states like California, Minnesota, New York is actually growing a lot, whereas we see Texas, their growth has slowed down. North Carolina's growth has slowed down. A lot of the deep South, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, I mean, they were trashed before, but like it's still kind of slowed down. So it's like when we talk about the labor participation rate, we also need to like account for the huge discrepancy between liberal states and conservative states.
Yeah, I haven't actually considered that. I've only been looking at federal rates and basically listening to Yellen's take on it. But yeah, I wouldn't put that past anything, because you know people often overlook local government, but I think that could play some part, especially because I think that liberal states are putting so much of an emphasis upon like being on the worker's side than being on the employer's side, that maybe it cultivates like a sort of like such a pro-worker sentiment that it's encouraging employment. I mean, of course, employment kind of encourages itself through the idea of like eating and having life, but I mean, that could be something that plays into it. But I know that I'd be
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I want to really look at that because, like, we have an idea of the labor participation rate, but then it's like we got states like California, sixth biggest economy in the world, you know, implementing their minimum wage. Same with Minnesota, and you know, increasing the job rate. But then you have other states that are completely offsetting this, like Mississippi, Alabama, with their atrocious policy. So it's like when we look at the federal rates, we kind of just see like an average or like kind of a half or like a median of the overall nation, which doesn't really tell us what's actually going on, because unlike Europe, the US, because of, you know, states' rights and everything, we have such individualized and different policies that it doesn't, we can't really get a true map of what's going on from just looking at the federal rate.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, I just saw the lowest three state-wise are Alabama, Mississippi, and West Virginia, and they're all under 55%.
I'd say that's probably
plays into our discussion about coal. Yeah.
No, talking about the labor force participation rates.
Well, like, yeah, but as we're talking about, as coal jobs are like kind of leaving, I think that can, West Virginia is it like at the bottom of the list, or is it like?
Yeah, West Virginia is the 51st. It's 52.8.
Oh, yikes! So it's only gonna get worse for them.
But I mean, Alabama, we don't have coal jobs, and ours is 55.3.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's Alabama. No offense. That was it. That was the highlight. It's all gone down from there.
Well, granted, we're still better than Mississippi, so
thank God for Mississippi. You know, that's the saying. Yeah.
And
California's
no,
California's at 61.9% for labor force participation rate, which is it's just under the federal rate.
Yeah, North Dakota is the highest with 71.6, but I got to guess this from all that fracking.
Okay, yeah. So I'm actually, like, well, not a native, but I've spent a lot of time in North Dakota, and I can tell you that like, that's gonna change very fast because the state is currently getting an oil glut. the University of North Dakota, where I spent a semester for a research project. They're losing a lot of their funding. They had to cut a lot of hockey athletics teams. Same with NDSU. The state as a whole is actually going through a huge budget deficits because they're losing a lot of that oil money, and I think you have to, when we look at the labor participation rate, North Dakota is like the fourth least populated state in the nation. So there's like nobody there. And then a lot of the young working population ends up just leaving. They just like leave when they're like college age. So I think, so that's why like a lot of these stats, we got to look at it individually, because like, oh, look, you in like North Dakota with all their jobs. But then when you actually, as somebody who's been there and can give personal anecdotes as much as they mean, I can offer some sort of insight that it's not as looking as good as people think it is.
Yeah, and I would say when you look at all these states that we're mentioning that have such low rates, I mean, Alabama, Mississippi, North Dakota, it's not so much, like coal jobs specifically, but it's just like they aren't as privy to like cultivating the like higher like industries that are currently growing, like tech, services, and even there's a CNN Money article that we're operating off of. That's basically industries that added the most jobs last month, and the top three are tech services, professional services, healthcare, and restaurants and bars. Which is, I think that's always going to be consistently high. But and you look at tech services, that's a very California thing, and these cities like Alabama, Mississippi, North Dakota, they don't have sort of industrial centers in the same way that places like Illinois or California, like Chicago, Los Angeles, the Silicon Valley. These states aren't really seeing this centralized boom in jobs that a lot of these other states are seeing in like specific industries, and I think that that's something that we should also pay attention to, because a lot of these economies are kind of sitting, maybe lagging behind in a lot of ways that sort of coincide with it, with like, how industries are changing. So the economies might be lagging behind in both labor force participation rate and in sort of the literal structure and composition of their jobs market, basically.
What's interesting is Huntsville, Alabama, where NASA is like the #2 tech city in the country, and it's a very progressive city. But the rest of Alabama, especially Birmingham, has really been hurting with the lack of the steel industry and shipping industry down in Mobile. That's really the biggest problem. I mean, where I live, luckily, we have a university to employ most people.
What university?
Alabama, the main one.
Oh, Roll Tide. I'm sorry about the national championship.
That's
very
sad. Very sad.
That was a shot to the heart.
I was rooting for Alabama for that one, so that was sad. And yeah, the sixth highest gains in jobs last month was in education with 9.8 thousand jobs. So, maybe there's, but either way, it's not, none of it's really centralized. So it's, it's interesting to see, and all of it's kind of speculation at this point, because we won't really see how Trump's policies are affecting these, individual use cases until further on into his presidency. But yeah, it's just interesting.
Well, do y'all have any specific policy recommendations that the federal government could take to help out these more low labor participation rate states?
I mean, my main focus would be on like a federal vocational training initiative sort of deal, because I think that a lot of this is what we're seeing is a lag behind. Is a lag behind in the literal composition of their economy. And so the main issue with that is getting workers to transition in newer fields. And as you said, a lot of these places have, kind of garbage education rates and, education quality. So I think that if we could sort of offer a federal approach to this.
The same thing happened in the Civil War.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say the same thing happened after the Civil War it wasn't until the boll weevil took out the cotton industry, the South was able to, I guess modernize. That's in quotes right there, but so it's the same thing that's happening now, really.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say I support exactly what Justin's saying. Vocational training is a must. Educational opportunities, especially with Alabama. Auburn, very, very good institution. University of Alabama, very good institution. Like, these are top tier institutions, and there's a lot of, like, NASA's there. You mentioned that earlier. Like, there's a lot of opportunities for growth, and I think, like, they also have, like, the educational institutions that can really put out a very well trained and competent workforce. So I think, hold on, I want to check something really quick. I want to see what the average tuition rate is for University of Alabama, and then contrast.
I think in-state's around 8,000, 9,000, but I'm not 100%.
All right, and then that shouldn't be an issue, because a lot of what happens is that, like, I know for North Carolina, like, you have Duke University, which is, I think the 8th best college in the nation, but then, like, I'm pretty sure 80% of, like, North Carolina can barely afford it because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
But I guess that issue doesn't exist with Alabama.
Well, one thing is, my cousin, he just graduated, and he, he's not in an incredibly high income family, but the grant he got from the state was only $500.
Yeah, that's like
terrible.
that.
That's a 16th of a cost to go to Alabama, and of course, Alabama's not a high income state.
Yeah.
See, that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna contrast the tuition rates of Auburn and University of Alabama and compare it with the average income of people in Alabama to see if, like, okay, can these people even go or, like, afford these institutions? Because, like,
they can, they just got to go into a lot of student debt.
Yeah,
that's
kind of the trend for everywhere.
Like, California does a very good job of this. Like, California's, I think, what they consider kind of the Massachusetts of the West. They've got their, Stanford, of course, very prestigious. UC Berkeley, #1 public school in the nation. UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, the whole UC system, very, very good education system. And for California students, it's basically very little. And the best part is, from what I've heard, is even the students who go to community college, if they get, like, a general requirements done, they have opportunities to transfer to elite institutions such as Berkeley and UCLA. So California does a very good job of making educating their populace and putting out a well-trained workforce. And I mean, it is at the expense of others. When I was a senior in high school, I was thinking about applying to Berkeley, and I talked to some people, and they said that, like, it's very hard to do if you're out of state, because Berkeley literally accepts, like, only students from California and abroad. Like, they're not, I think all of California is not, like, that open to, like, out of state. So, but
yeah, and I think that a lot of that has to do with their really centralized, like, their economy is really focused on technology with, Silicon Valley and, the various industrial centers, and because they have a lot of big cities. And, when you look at, places like, Alabama, where they don't have these, like, focused industries where people are going, and they're, you go to UC Berkeley, you're like, hey, I'm going to go into technology, and this is going to benefit the state I'm in. Alabama isn't seeing very much incentive to offer these grants, I would say, because they're seeing so much of an exodus. That's the word. And so, that's probably one of the reasons why, Auburn kind of sucks. And so, we're facing a lot of it is just, focusing on, really attracting in-state and out-of-state workers into their state, I would say.
I guess that's true, but, like, I guess, like, South Carolina's doing a very good job of this from what I saw. Clemson University, they're going through a whole plan to become, like, a top 20 public institution. And it's like I don't think, see, then you have some states like Minnesota, okay, one of the most liberal states in the nation. I guess the three top tier colleges we have here are Carleton College. I think it's a top 10 liberal arts institution, but very expensive.
Yeah, it is.
We have University of Minnesota. I think it's ranked 70th in the nation overall. Very good institution. And then University of St. Thomas, it's a Catholic school, but relatively secular and relatively high ranked. Think Notre Dame, but maybe a slight tier down. So it's like we don't have like any Duke, Harvard, or Stanford, but with our institutions, we still like, because they're so cheap here for Minnesotans who tend to have a higher income average, we're able to provide opportunities not only in tech, but in economics, business, agriculture, liberal arts. And I think that's what needs to happen. Like California, they've done a very good job. Like a lot of their institutions, like I know Stanford and Berkeley are well known in like almost every field, not just tech. And I forgot Caltech too. Caltech is, I think, a top 10 ranked school. They're also there too. So California, they have an exclusively technological school for people who want to go that route, but they also have institutions for a lot of other people. Whereas like a lot of these other states, like Alabama, the problem is that like there isn't really an industry people can go into. And then as I think one of the other commenters pointed out, that the state isn't doing enough to, you know, encourage people to like come to these programs. And I love football. Like, you know, I love sports. I'm a college athlete. I participate in Division I athletics. I play soccer for my school. But at the end of the day, just having a big football program, that really isn't going to do much. Like, you really need to get an education on academic kind of competency if you really want your state to improve.
Well,
yeah, and also that's something that Germany is doing as well. I actually just got back from a university tour in Germany, and something that they do really well that I think that the U.S. really doesn't is how they're able to have such cheap education in Germany, or at least at the specific universities I went to. I went to the University of Aachen, and as well as Darmstadt, which are both in the western part of Germany. And Aachen is it's kind of like the Silicon Valley of Europe. It's very like industry based, and something that the industries do there is they basically pay for the students' education, so the students will work for the industry. And I'm not sure if that's exactly what California does, but I know that's what Germany does, at least at the specific universities. And I think that that's something that I know that states like Alabama don't exactly have an industrial base, but I feel like that's something they should try to do, is like what little businesses they have should try to invest more in the school, so they're putting less constraint on the government to do it. And if more businesses invest in the school, then they'll get basically a return on that investment in an educated workforce that can then participate more in the workforce.
I agree with that, but see, okay, here's the problem now. So we discussed NASA, okay? NASA is an example. So you're working for NASA, okay? You get applications. Who are you going to pick? Are you going to pick the candidates from MIT, Berkeley, Caltech, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, or are you going to pick the guys from Auburn, Alabama? Not like, you know, dissing these schools at all, but like
they're not as good as MIT.
Yeah. For a lot of for a top tier institution entity like NASA or the other brands in Alabama, they want the best for their business, because at the end of the day, you know, corporations,
Regions Bank is another one.
Exactly. They're going to recruit out of state from top tier institutions that are going to give people, and yeah, of course they might occasionally pick the kid from, you know, Alabama or so, but that's only as a token. I can tell you this from Division I athletics. I have a friend. Tennis, a lot of tennis schools do this a lot. They recruit foreign. They'll like get a bunch of foreigners, and you'll find like a lot of like the top tier teams like UCLA, USC, Harvard in tennis are completely foreign. They'll like just have one American dude, and you know, as a token symbol, but most of it's foreign. And I think that's the same thing here. That at the end of the day, it's about, you know, it's about profits. It's about what the best you can get, what the best outcome you can get for your corporation or entity. And if that means picking somebody from Caltech over a local guy from Alabama, that's what they're going to do. Whereas like in your situation with Germany, like I don't think they have options, because you just meant I've heard of the institutions you've been to, and they're already pretty top tier. They're not gonna take people from Oxford or the Swiss Institute, because those are too far away. And
actually, competition between universities and the European Union and the Schengen zone in general is actually a big deal, because
It
a lot
is.
of yeah.
I don't know that much, but I do know like the German area recruits primarily from Germany, and then
Yeah, so
Oxford and the Swiss Institute. Those are the ones that have a competition. But I'm not familiar with too much of the college policies in the EU.
the
Well, actually,
main
something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
the main issue isn't so much like you were right in saying that they aren't really taking people from Oxford, but the main issue is more taking workers from less like industrialized areas like the Balkan Tigers and Baltic Tigers, one of the two, Eastern Europe and stuff that are like developing economies. They're taking their best workers away, taking them to Germany, and kind of putting them into Germany's tech sector, which is making developing economies less productive in the EU.
Well, that's actually something. I mean, obviously, Germany has. They don't have a free education, but it's like 200 euros, which is like nothing. But what they do is they open it up to international students. So yes, they take some people from Eastern Europe, but the majority of people going to at least the top German universities like Aachen and Darmstadt. I'm actually sure that's a top university, but it's because like Germany doesn't really have a ranking system like the U.S. does. But anyways, a lot of them are coming from India and third world Asian countries. That's where at least
Oh yeah, I read
personal
something about that. Yeah.
that's where the majority of the students are coming from. And actually, if you go to like the Quora Ask page about like how to get into German university as a foreign student, the majority of people asking are Indian students. And so
Quora's like all Indian, I'm pretty sure. The Indians have taken over Quora, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh
yeah, and
superpower by 2020 is a good,
this is super. Yeah, the economic powerhouse. And yeah, that's something that that's where a lot of German students are coming from, and as well as like first world countries. But the first world countries like America and other European countries, they don't really have a need to go to Germany. Whereas people in India, they really have no other options because they can't really afford the schools in the U.S. They can't really afford the schools in the other European countries. Although I'm not sure what all European countries have free universities, but I know Germany is like the most known one that does. So that's pretty much where they all go, and they have obviously Germany is probably one of the biggest manufacturers. I don't think is it the biggest manufacturer in Europe. I think it is.
It probably is. I would guess.
The car industry, yeah, no, it is.
Yeah, and the car industries, that's actually something that's where the majority of engineers go is the car industries. And those are actually the industries that are most invested in the universities. Like I also went to the University of Hamburg, and like they say, and we were talking to some of the people there, and they said that they just constantly get donations and money from like BMW and from Audi and other German car companies. And
that's an interesting model.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I've never heard.
I don't think it. Yeah, it is definitely unique. I don't know. I mean, it would be nice if it could be replicated, and I think that it could probably be replicated in some areas of the United States, but I'm not sure.
It's hard to do it very, cleanly with the way that businesses are sort of portrayed here.
Yeah, and another thing that they do is the reason that there's like a lot of trust between like employees and employers in Germany is because of the educational system and how it's structured. Like most people, I mean, I'm not exactly sure the exact percentages, but like basically you can either go to like a high school or you can go to like more of a trades kind of school in Germany. And so a lot of the people who go into trade schools, like they usually stick with whatever company they get assigned to. So there's a very high trust between employers and employees in Germany. And so that's why a lot of these companies are investing so much in universities, because they trust that they'll come to work for them later on. Because that's just kind of like a cultural thing in Germany.
Yeah.
The Germans are very hardworking people. That's just integrated.
And I think there's a much more pro-business sort of view there. So a lot of it is cultural. So I think are we ready to move on to our next topic?
Oh yeah, sure.
I think we're gonna skip this cone one because we've already kind of touched it. But the German election is coming up next month. If you guys, I think we could start this off kind of fun. Going around what party you guys support for Germany.
Oh yeah, I definitely, obviously support the Social Democrats for Germany. Martin Schulz all the way. Mostly because I think his, obviously I like his immigration policy. I think that's very important. Obviously right now with Germany specifically, hate those ads that just play. And yeah, immigration policy is something very important in Germany right now, because that's actually like one of the main issues that a lot of people have with Merkel, at least like from the people I've been talking to in Germany. I'm not sure. This could just be anecdotal examples, but I know a lot of the people in Germany really don't like the way that Merkel handled the refugee crisis. And that's going to be like a major deciding point on who wins the election, is basically what the voters think the better immigration policy is. But I also think another good thing about Schulz is he wants to pretty much do away with like the Agenda 2010 reforms that happened back in 2003, which, you know, have been like kind of praised as like, you know, supply side working, even though it really didn't, because the only reason that Germany recovered so fast in the recession was because they're a export-led economy, and they run massive trade surpluses, and it really had nothing to do with the deregulation of the labor markets and things like that. And I think that and obviously, I'm pretty sure the opinion polls right now, Merkel is still, or at least I'm not sure Merkel, but like the Christian Democrats are pulling ahead of Martin Schulz right now. But I still think that could change, because it did in Britain, obviously. Obviously, Corbyn didn't win, but the demographics changed pretty significantly.
All right, so after 5 minutes of Googling the first article that came up of political parties of Germany,
Yep.
and my very, very, very little knowledge of this issue, I'm going to support what LeftEconomics said, just based on this. So I guess for me, it's like, you know, I'm an atheist. I hate anything with the name Christian in it. So automatically, you know, gotta, you know, the CDU.
I should note the CDU's like Christianity under Merkel has been kind of.
Oh no, I know they've like left traditional values. Even
Yeah,
Merkel's like, I believe, you know, she's like, you know, personally, I believe, you know, marriage is between one man, one woman, but she was totally supportive of the same-sex marriage vote, and I'm fine with that. Like personally, you can believe what you want. Like, you know, I believe in the freedom of ideas. I just don't believe in forcing personal opinions on others. But I guess for me, like, I really would like to see the Social Democratic Party (SPD), just because I have done a little research on them. It'd be nice to see a bit of the status quo. I'd like to see, like with Germany, I'd like to see it go left. Like, I really don't want to see like the whole like, I mean, it isn't as big as we thought, but like the nationalist wave was a real thing in Europe, you know, with Brexit and everything. And then I think the Netherlands, kind of like their national candidate got shut down. France, that was a huge victory. Macron over Le Pen. And I hope Germany follows suit by kind of rejecting the nationalist extremist center kind of in politics.
Yeah, and obviously Merkel doesn't like obviously the alternative party would represent
Oh yeah,
more.
AfD. So.
Yeah, the AfD.
Yeah, AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, hasn't been is their sort of alt-right movement, and they're not polling well at all. So.
But I guess in my basic knowledge, I can't say that much, but in my basic knowledge, I kind of am just gonna second what LeftEconomics said about this.
Yeah, and actually, if you go to Germany, like there are the amount of anti-AfD stickers that are like, because in Europe, I don't know, I don't think this is like the same in American cities, but in European cities or even just like towns, it's like a thing to do to like put stickers and stuff all over like posts and public like lampposts and crossing things, street lights and things like that. And like when I was there, I saw so many anti-AfD things. Like, I'm not at all worried about the AfD. They're like a joke party, in my opinion, and they never do well in the polls. So I don't think, because obviously Le Pen represented that. Obviously, I don't think she was as bad as the AfD, but she kind of represented that nationalist movement that, like, you know, Trump, Nigel Farage, and people like that. But I'm glad that like people like Macron and Schulz are kind of gaining more popularity, and that's kind of dying down. And it would be nice to see people. However, I'm still skeptical. I don't know, because the opinion polls say Merkel's going to win. But I mean, it is still like it's almost 2 months away. Like if you count,
things can change. I think like it's kind of weird if Trump keeps on bashing Merkel, her like polls are going to go up. I think it's funny you were talking about the nationalist wave. I think a lot of people, they saw Brexit and Trump and like they're like at the beginning, not now, but at the beginning they're like, oh, this is new, this is something different from the European Union. This is something amazing. And I think 4 months later, they see the pound absolutely shitting itself. They see Trump becoming a world laughingstock, and a lot of these countries like France and the Netherlands, they're like, okay, yeah, I think this nationalist thing isn't as well organized as we thought it would be. And I think just seeing how awfully it's going for the countries that have decided to give a chance on it, that it's what's pushing, giving a lot of support for leftist movements in Germany. But yeah, I really do think like Martin Schulz has a real chance. I mean, of course, a lot of people are going to favor Merkel, and if Trump keeps on bashing her, that's just going to help. That's just going to keep on help her ratings. But I really do think it'll be interesting. I guess we can't really say anything for certain for now, and I think that's good. But it'll be an interesting race. It won't be a tense race. It won't be tense like the French election where we were all like, what way is France going to go? Either Germany is going to be left, center left, or around that political spectrum. But I think it'll be an interesting election.
Yeah, the CDU, they're called center right, but they're not too center right. Like, I mean, it's a coalition.
I would say they're center right. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on.
I'm describing it from a U.S. perspective. I know European terms are completely different, but like from a U.S. perspective, I see the current party as kind of center left based on what they're doing. Because like I think, let's be honest here, America has the best things, and you can't and that applies to everything, even our right wing. Like you can't go farther than America's right. So
yeah.
I'm in the same boat. I just did about 5 minutes of research. So, I'm a center right person. I think all y'all are center left. So I'm going to have to stick with Merkel. But that's out of very, very few amount of research on this.
Yeah, I sit directly between the FDP and SPD. I would say that my support practically leans more towards the FDP, but I'm not disappointed that the SPD is winning, or not winning, but the SPD is doing well. I think that Schulz is he's a good figurehead for sort of like the idea of liberal internationalism. I'd like to see the FDP do better than it's doing right now.
Well, I would too, but I don't know if I was being a little more pragmatic.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of doing. I mean, like, I'm not disappointed that Schulz is doing well. I think Lindner is a good person, but I don't think he's the sort of figurehead for like Europhilia and like that sort of concept that Schulz, God Chancellor, is. So I'd like to see, like Schulz see a nice surge and take the lead, but Merkel, if we have to deal with Merkel for another term, then God forbid, but it's not going to be.
See, I don't know. For me, it's like with France, I was genuinely concerned about what the shape and destiny of Europe was going to look like if Le Pen won. But like in the German election, yeah, I'm definitely interested. But it's like there isn't really, for me personally, and I think for Europe as a whole, there's going to be that much of a shift based on Schulz or Merkel, because I think, yes, there are differences, but both of them I'd say are within the same kind of spectrum of German economics. And I think the coalition that will eventually be formed will also kind of neutralize any of the extremist elements that may be in the party. So I don't really think it should be anything that we have to worry about, I guess. For the leftists, I don't know, of course the right wing, they're all upset, which I think is a good thing, but it's all right.
And I think that the split between the SPD and the FDP, that we're kind of, those are the main two parties that like people who don't support the CDU but are still like sympathetic with centrist views are kind of moving towards. The split is kind of just between like more center right views that are held by the FDP and more center left views that are held by the SPD. And I would consider myself more center right than center left at this point. So I'd like to see the FDP get a stronger voice, even if the SPD or the CDU control like a large portion of parliament. So I think that would be the ideal situation, as a solid centrist representation. So yeah, I think that that's the type of thing we're heading towards in Germany, and I wouldn't say it's per se that bad at all.
The centrist hegemony is remaining in order.
Yeah, Merkel's cucked the entire populace. So,
so I'm curious. I guess because I don't. Would you all like when it comes to U.S. politics? Would you all identify as kind of centrist, center left, traditional liberal, Sanders, progressive, or where do you guys all stand?
Definitely not Sanders. Absolutely not Sanders. I would consider Sanders a left-wing populist in the same vein as.
See,
not in the same
it's
vein
kind of like people hate me for saying this, but I was a big Sanders supporter back in the day.
Well, I was too.
And then I took college economics, and that kind of like moderated my leftist stance. I guess for social policies, I'm super far left. Well, not far left, but like full legalization on abortion, full legalization on gay marriage, full like curtailing religious liberty. You know, I guess a lot of that comes from my atheist views too. But I guess when it comes to economics, I'd say I'm just traditional center left, I guess. So
I would say that at least socially, I'm basically a libertarian for the most part. But
Ron Paul libertarian, Gary Johnson libertarian, Rand Paul.
Like libertarian socially, in the sense that like social liberties.
Just social, not economically.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because Ron Paul is a social right wing, so
yeah.
Everyone here is libertarian socially, I think. So.
Yeah, but in terms of economics, I'm probably the most right wing person here, but I'm still a new Keynesian. But I call myself more of like a man-Q or
a Republican new Keynesian.
Yeah, I'm a Republican. You know, I like Friedman. You know, I disagree with him a little bit, but I still like him.
So wait, are you guys more saltwater or freshwater?
I'm definitely saltwater then.
Saltwater.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a new Keynesian.
Oh, come on, guys. I guess I'm the lone freshwater here.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I'm not a new Keynesian, so.
Yeah, you're a post-Keynesian heterodox scum. So
not even not a post-Keynesian.
Are you just
that's good. That's good. Diversity of thought, diversity of ideas here. So that's good. I will say that I am the economics major here. So I will put that in order. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I guess being agnostic, I would say on the religious liberty, I tend to be supportive of just liberty in general, but I understand that religion has seemed to impede scientific advancement. That's my big thing.
Yeah.
See, so like for me, I guess I understand the value religion has, and I understand the social, anthropological kind of aspects of it. However, I view religion as just kind of like a very, very strong opinion. And
yes.
my whole issue is that like in the United States, your religious liberty, your opinions, your freedom of opinion ends when people's human rights begin. So I don't have a problem with people going on the street, preaching what they believe. I don't have a problem with people being respectful and like protesting, going to the March for Life and shouting abortion is murder. I don't have a problem with the people, like when I was at the Pride March, I don't have a problem with people holding up signs that, like, of course I dislike it, but I don't have a problem with people saying, you're all going to repent. And so I'm not LGBTQ, by the way. I just enjoy going to the Pride March. It's pretty lit. But so I'm fine with that. What I have a problem with is when people are like, my faith tells me abortion is wrong, so I support abortion restrictions. My faith tells me gay marriage is wrong, so I support gay marriage restrictions. Like the United States is a secular institution, and you can have those values, but at the end of the day, those are your opinions, and I feel it's wrong to force your opinions on others, and that's kind of where I stand socially. So
it's freedom for everyone to be free, I guess.
How do you feel about the right to discriminate?
So okay, I guess, are you talking about like the whole them Baker making a
just in general, like race-based, gender-based, religion, any?
Oh, I feel you shouldn't be able to discriminate against something that people can't change. So sexual orientation, I mean, studies show that you can't, like, being gay isn't a choice. You shouldn't be able to discriminate for that. Skin color, you shouldn't be able to discriminate against that. Race, age, you know, I guess gender. Gender is such a tricky line now because of what's going on.
I'll say, well, then, let's just say sex then instead of
sex. Yes, sex. Okay. I think I mean, you may all disagree, but I think a baker. I think, like, if a gay couple asks a baker to make a cake, I believe in the values of public property and kind of that public spirit. Part of that contract in the business says he must make a cake for that, you know, gay couple. He can't discriminate against them. And I know people bring up the whole, oh, you know, in the markets they'll just go out of business, but I actually studied this. If you look at the places, a lot of rural areas, 70% of rural areas have only one major food supplier. So if you're a gay couple, like, and you want to get a cake and you're like, oh, I'll boycott, I'll just go somewhere else. In a lot of places, you can't go somewhere else because that's literally your only place. So of course, in a normal market setting, I would just let the natural market, as Adam Smith says, I'd just let the invisible hand take its course and they'd go out of business for their bigotry, et cetera, et cetera. But the realistic idea is that just isn't the case. So from my perspective, I believe that they should have that. They should have that right. Now if a neo-Nazi or a KKK member comes in and starts saying, like, hey, you know, yeah, make a cake that says, you know, like, all black people are, you know, criminals, etc. Like, racism, that's something you can change. That's not like a deeply seated inherent part of somebody. That's like a personal opinion. That's something that I believe you can be discriminated.
That's a fair assessment, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I think for me the line is drawn about whether it's an inherent part of somebody, such as sexual orientation, race, age, you know, etc., and whether it's like an opinion or something that somebody can change, such as religion, political ideology, or opinion. Sorry if I went on a tangent there, but
no, that's fine. Yeah, it's great to hear. I mean, like, I think.
Well, you know, Amazon bought Whole Foods, so maybe that might not be their only supplier. We might get drone delivered cakes.
Oh, God, if God is merciful. But yeah, I would say that, you know, I sit on the opposite view. I think that businesses should be allowed to decide who they serve. My personal view is that they should have to post, like, publicly, like, post on their entrances who they aren't willing to serve, so that consumers stay informed. But my main, like, concern with taking up that view is that point that you brought up about how some markets just aren't competitive enough to, like, warrant
70% of rural markets only have one major food supplier. That's the thing that, like, as an economist, I completely support your view. I say, okay, yeah, fine, let them engage in their bigotry. We'll just let the invisible hand of the market put them out of business. But that just doesn't happen. A lot of these places.
I would say that you could kind of combat that with, like, regulations on, like, if you can look at like how much of a market share, like how much of our market share is split between different firms in certain areas. You could even say, you know, if one firm holds X market share, they can't discriminate. So I would say that you could even change it upon implementation to kind of favor only industries that will actually, like, benefit from this more, like, deregulated stance. I think I would say it's not really the end all be all that there's not high competition in rural areas, especially if you even localize the implementation, which, I mean, I think I've never been for localizing anything because the federal government is my god. So it's
Is that your religion?
Yeah, my religion is the federal government and
See, I think with this issue we're going to get an answer very soon. I believe the Supreme Court is taking it. I think Kennedy, Ginsburg, who's I forgot the other, but there's 4 of them that I'm pretty sure should vote on kind of what I'm saying, that, like, yep, you can't discriminate on things people can't change. But I'm very concerned about Gorsuch. Neil Gorsuch is a big religious liberty proponent. He wrote the concurring opinion on a federal appellate court for the Hobby Lobby ruling on they can deny paying for their employer's birth control, and he's a lot of his writings. I've read a lot of his stuff when he was kind of in the process of getting confirmed. He's written a lot about religious liberty and that being an inherent right. So I'm interested to see what he says. I'm pretty sure 99% he's going to be like, yeah, sure, they can discriminate. It's their religious right. But I don't know if his opinion is going to be enough to flip a decision on this. So
yeah. All right, I think that was a solid discussion on that. So if I don't know if you guys, do you just want to open it up to Q&A now? I think it's kind of in high demand between like the 5 people who are watching.
I have people who, like, I don't know why the view thing is, but I'm actually getting DMs on my Rendezvous for Reason account, so I can ask some questions from there if you guys are interested.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah,
Connor and Gabe, you guys can like build up a question database.
So yeah, I think one DM that I got was, I mean, a lot of people were just kind of like curious about where you guys stand politically. So I guess
we probably should have explained that.
Yeah, so 2-minute spiel if everybody wants to just go around, say where they stand economic, socially, kind of who they would. And then another question is who we all would support for the. I guess they assume we're all liberal, so they're like. One question was, who do you guys all support for the Democrats running in 2020? So those are 2 questions we can do. So first, I think everybody just 2 minutes, go around what your political views are, keep it kind of brief, and then we can all discuss who we'd want for 2020.
Okay. Who wants to start?
I'll start, I guess.
All right, go ahead.
So I was actually just a few like days ago or weeks ago, I was a Marxist, so still coming off that far left high. And so I guess my main political views would now be, I mean, obviously I try to focus more on Europe rather than America because I plan on living in Europe. And so I guess I really do support like things like the EU and really the cooperation between nations. I feel is the best way to go. Like as far as like individual like political or as far as social policy goes, I would pretty much agree with you that, you know, there should be like maximum like liberty for individual social rights and things like that. But as far as economic freedoms go, I'm a little more hesitant on that. Obviously, I do support the market system operating to the fullest extent possible, but obviously I support intervention in the market for things like a basic minimum wage and just things like along those lines of basic social welfare and things like that, basically.
Who wants to go next?
All right, I guess I'll go quick since I already did a great deal. Economically, I guess in general, I was a huge Sanders supporter. You know, I was on the. I guess when I was younger, so like my political thing is really weird. I grew up in a very religious family. I grew up with a mom who told me she'd disown me if I turned out to be gay. So I was, you know, in high school, I was on the Republican train. I was very homophobic. I was mad about why George Bush was getting a lot of flack for the Abu Ghraib scandal. I thought we should be torturing and murdering people who are beheading American soldiers. I didn't see any problem with dropping nuclear bombs on Iran or the Middle East. So that was me back in the day. I guess I made the transition as I transitioned from Christian to atheist. I kind of went the liberal route, and I was a huge Sanders supporter. And then I'm an econ and bioethics major right now at my school, and as I've been studying economics, I still remember a day in class where my economics professor, who actually worked at the Federal Reserve and has a Fields Medal in mathematics, openly told us that Sanders supporters and Trump supporters know nothing about trade and they're economically illiterate.
God, that's so based.
So,
God tier, man.
No, but yeah, in general, my economic policies are pretty, I'd say, moderately left. I've been hesitant to adopt the label of New Keynesian. I've seen myself as kind of a Krugman economist for a while, but I think just doing research on it, I decided that I think I will start identifying as a New Keynesian now, moderate left economist. So that's my econ position. Social, I mean, you guys heard it. My atheism has a very big part in why, you know, I'm super pro gay marriage, super pro abortion rights. Abortion is actually a huge topic for me right now. I'm currently in the process of emailing Secular Pro-Life, the national organization, telling them why they're wrong and that no atheist should be pro-life because it's dumb. So I'm corresponding with their doctor, so that's fun. Pretty passionate there. Pro-LGBTQ. I guess like I said, pro-social individualism, I guess, pro-secular humanism, removing religion from government is a big thing for me, getting rid of the whole "in God we trust." Regarding guns, I guess, on guns, I don't support banning them. That is unconstitutional. However, I do support background checks and common sense regulations. So I guess that's my general spiel. If you have any questions about my economic policies in general, feel free to DM me over at RendezvousWithReason. So yeah, shameless plug-in at the end.
I guess I'll go next. If I had to describe myself as a label, I would say moderate Republican, but I hesitate to use that for obvious reasons. I would say that I'm a new Keynesian. I supported the auto and bank bailouts, the QE by the Fed, lower interest rates, all the typical Keynesian stuff. But I also support lower regulation than probably the rest of you. And I do support some form of banking regulation, whether that be Dodd-Frank or Glass-Steagall, whichever works better. And I do typically support lower taxes on everybody. And I guess social welfare programs for me would have to be a negative income tax and possibly some form of a healthcare policy. I don't know really anything about healthcare, so I don't talk about it. But definitely some form of a government safety net there. I do support at least partially privatizing Social Security, because right now the cost, it's not being handled very well at the federal government level. Gun wise, I'm pretty pro gun. I do support background checks and all that stuff. Social policy, basically a libertarian. In foreign policy, I would say I'm a liberal internationalist. So only interventions for human rights or, saving freedom, basically no like oil or
quick. Yeah, I support that too. I support that too about when it comes to upholding international law, freedom, etc. So that's my foreign policy.
And then EU, I'm a big supporter of the EU, but I think I agree with LeftEconomics that the Eurozone's largely inefficient and it needs to be reformed with just a political union with a monetary union in that. And I support basically every trade deal that's ever been proposed. So.
All right. Before the next person goes, I just want to say that if you'd be kicked out of every single Republican meeting, even though you identify as a moderate Republican, you'd be kicked out of every single conservative meeting.
That's why, and I'm even pro-choice, so that's why I don't use that label very often. But I would vote Republican.
So I guess I'm next. My political views, I would say I align very much with the center, but my political compass would consider me center-right. I have historically categorized myself as center-left, but I would say my views are definitely aligning more center-right these days. I would say I'm for deregulation as much as you can have it. I consider myself economically new Keynesian, with some caveats to that. I would adopt some post-Keynesian ideas. But anyways, so socially, I'm pretty much completely socially liberal. In fact, I'm like vehemently socially liberal on LGBT rights. I do have some criticisms on LGBT views of gender, but it's not anything that would. It's not like there are only two genders. It's the idea that, and I'll go into this in like an essay someday, but it's their approach to just expanding gender classification rather than dismantling the norm system. But that's irrelevant. Foreign policy-wise, I am very pro-supranational unions. I would consider myself, if you had to politically describe me, be supranational unionism. So I'm for institutions like the EU and whatnot, though I am critical of the Eurozone. I think that they should just shift to a peg system and have the same benefits, but be able to adjust if they have to. Other things that are relevant, I'm pro-choice, less dedicated to that point of view, but I would consider myself pro-choice. I'm an agnostic atheist. Yeah, I mean, I'd consider myself a pretty
So you're an
libertarian.
atheist.
What?
You're an atheist, an agnostic atheist. Is
Yeah,
that like
no,
a
I mean,
lack of belief?
like a questioning, like I'm an atheist. Yeah, I'm an atheist.
All
Um,
right.
yeah, and so what else? Oh yeah, I would consider myself a moderate Democrat, but kind of like my main like concerns with Republicans would be like social policy issues, and I think that there are enough moderate Democrats to not warrant a party switch, even though my views have kind of shifted more right wing over time. But yeah.
Yeah. Also,
Um,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, so 2020 for the Democratic
Oh
Party.
yes, yes. So
Yeah.
I guess you
My,
guys can start first for that.
my candidate, I guess, well, ideally it'd be John Ossoff, but um, I guess like Joe Biden wouldn't be bad to see, but I don't know if he's realistically going to come back. Other than that, there's not many moderates that I honestly would say are very practical. Kamala Harris is the closest thing, but I
You
would
guys
say
you aren't on Team Zuckerberg or Team Bezos? What?
Team Cuban?
I'd very strongly consider looking to moderate Republicans in 2020, if I'm being honest.
Assuming they can steal a nomination from Trump.
Yeah, which is honestly
Right.
probably very likely.
Yeah.
I think.
Let me go last. I don't know that. I'm gonna do some quick research real quick.
All right, I guess I'll go then. So for 2020, this is going to be a change, but I really want to see Mark Cuban. I know he's been a libertarian for a while, but he endorsed Hillary. I mean, socially, he's got the same, very pro-choice, very pro-LGBTQ. And I think he's also kind of the whole social rights thing, like very like he like insults a bunch of the right wing Christians on Twitter, which I really like. Plus, he hates Trump. He absolutely hates Trump, and I think his hatred for Trump is actually what's made him more liberal. And I think it'd be very cool to see an actual self-made billionaire and somebody who's actually intelligent when it comes to, economics in the White House. I mean, he has a degree from IU, which is a very good business school, if I remember. Kelly Business School, very high ranked. So that'd be very cool. Biden, that'd be awesome to see, but I think he's too old and he's just been very, he's just dealt with a lot with his son's death and everything. Michael Bloomberg, mayor of New
Oh
York.
yeah, I should note Bloomberg would be my main support if he ran.
I don't know if he would. I mean, mayor of New York's done a pretty good job there.
But Bloomberg is my religion.
I guess, for me, it's more of I kind of support Cuban. I kind of support, Bloomberg for me. But I know for sure I do not want to see Hillary run again. That's a disaster. I don't want to see Cory Booker run again. He's owned by Big Pharma. I don't want to see a lot of the corporate Democrats. I want somebody new. I want somebody fresh, and I want somebody. I guess my litmus test when it comes to voting is I think economically literate. I want an economically literate president. They need to be pro-choice. They need to be I don't care, pro-choice and basically I guess the two things in summation are economically literate and socially liberal, pro-choice, pro-LGBTQ, against religious right wing. If those are, if they endorse those values, I will gladly throw my support behind them. All 63,000 followers on my account.
I guess I'll go. I don't really know too much about the candidates running in 2020, but from my basic research, I think I'm going all in on Dwayne Johnson. No, but I think from looking at it, I would have to go either with Joe Biden or Mark Cuban because I like Shark Tank, so I guess he's the only one I actually know about. Who's a serious candidate, who's not like Stephen Colbert or
Kid Rock.
They actually did polls on this. Mark Cuban, without campaigning, without doing a single campaign, is already beating Trump by 4 or 5 points.
Yeah, that's
I would be
safe to say they said genetic. They compared genetic Democrat individual and Trump, and genetic Democrat individual is 3 or 2 votes above Trump right now. So.
Yeah,
I
I
would
think
be cautious about like praising Cuban though. In the past, he's been very libertarian. Multiple times, he's praised Ayn Rand's philosophy. So I mean,
He's gone away from that. He's gone away from that though. I think he's really
I think
shifted
he's
left.
not. He looks
that's
like he's gone
philosophy.
away from that
That's
because
philosophy though. Like he probably doesn't
yeah,
carry that
politics
over
is
to
just
like he does. He's a business person. Like he knows how
exactly.
he separates it. I feel like he's
And
able
I
to
would say it's kind of odd that you would like be against corporate Democrats, but be for someone like Mark Cuban.
Okay, hold on. You gotta draw a different. Like he's not like, yeah, he's like a corporation guy, but he's not like a corporate.
Yeah,
Like,
Mark
okay,
Mark
He's
Cuban
going to
isn't a
represent the
corporate
same
Democrat.
interests, though. That's the. I mean,
we don't know that yet. Like
I don't see
no,
Mark Cuban isn't going to take money from big pharma and big banks and completely repeal Glass-Steagall.
he already has his own money. Like that's one.
yeah, but so did
supported
Trump.
regulations. No, he supports regulations. I've looked into this. He supports regulations. Of course, he's not as far left on economic regulation as Bloomberg or a different candidate be, but I would still support. I still think he's one of the better options. I'm willing to compromise just for the sake of being. He's economically literate. Sure, would I prefer somebody who's more like who's going to be tougher on Wall Street and tougher on big banks? Yeah, but like the thing is, unlike Christian evangelicals who are going to support a thrice married serial adulterer just because he, supports abortion, I'm willing to compromise with just like they are. I think that's what the Democratic. I think the left needs to do that. I think this is a topic we can get into more on a different show, but like I think we need because we have so many factions. We have the progressive left, we have the Sanders left, we have moderate, then we have people like you in the center. I think we kind of need to be willing to compromise on a candidate who espouses basic values and will take all groups and branches of the Democratic Party seriously.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We need like a united opposition, but the thing is, I don't think Mark Cuban is going to be that kind of person. I think we need someone who has political experience. Like, I mean, Kamala Harris is probably like the best sort of popular ideal of this, but I would say that like the probability of Democrats, not even from like a view perspective, but from like just a logistical perspective, the party's been in shambles since Sanders. So I think that them being able
One
to.
second, guys, I'm gonna leave quickly.
Oh yeah, no problem. Just join back when you can. But I think that the possibility of them being able to form a united front is kind of like limited, which is why I'm looking to the more moderate wing of the Republicans. And I would say that like my opposition to corporate Democrats, whatever that's supposed to mean, I mean, like I know what it means, but is much less than what's been expressed so far. But we're not really seeing a strong candidate that everyone can rally behind, which is why there's a debate going on right now in this live stream, I guess.
Well, I guess I'll go next. I think the goal would be Bernanke, but I have a strong feeling he's not going to do it.
Make me nut.
Just quick question. No, I hate to interrupt you. Has a Federal Reserve chairman ever run for president? I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I would be surprised.
No, it hasn't.
Okay.
Well, Bernanke's an independent.
Yeah.
Well, he was a Republican before Trump.
Yeah, he was a Republican when he got nominated.
All right, continue on. Sorry for the interruption.
But my candidate would probably be Bloomberg. Just my quick reading. He sounds very good. Kamala Harris, I feel like she might not be as economically literate as Bloomberg is. So I would have to go with Bloomberg on that, most definitely.
Yeah.
Also, I would agree. Yeah.
Another thing I just wanted added to go back to kind of to the political review views thing is I would support a candidate who would do a banking reform that's a lot like the Chicago plan. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
I do know.
It was during the Great Depression. It was proposed by Irving Fisher. It's basically instead of having private banks create the majority of money in circulation, you have just the central bank create the money and then use that to directly inject money into the economy instead of relying.
I would be less. I mean, because I think that that's not good for QE, but I mean, I see where you're coming from.
I don't know. I got to be skeptical, being a little more right wing. something like that. But I hadn't done any research into it, so
Yeah, see, that's like another thing I don't really like with especially with like the Republicans, is I feel like a lot of them just go for deregulation just for the sake of deregulation.
Yeah.
You know, they don't really check to see if the deregulation is good, because obviously there is a certain degree of deregulation that would be necessary and would be beneficial. But like I feel like just going for like what Trump wants, you know, the massive deregulation just to get rid of all the regulation, is just dumb. Like, and I know there are probably some very intelligent people there who advocate things like that, but I just don't think that they're looking at it in the full perspective that the government doing more things isn't exactly inherently a bad thing, but also people on like some of the more left-leaning social democrats also need to realize that like the government not doing things also is not inherently bad. You know, I feel that's a problem. At least in Europe, that's a big problem with some of the candidates. I don't know.
would say it's probably worse in America because we are super partisan, at least right now.
Yeah.
I would guess.
So do we want to move?
I have two questions
question?
from my DMs. If 2 questions people are asking from my DMs, unless you guys want to move on.
Maybe we should take something from the live chat, I guess.
All right, that's fine.
Here, I'm going to tell them.
Live chat seems to consist of this Connor individual, Gabe, and a bunch of communists.
It's basically guys that I'm friends with, so it's but I mean we can continue talking to okay, they're so we can continue talking about this until they Gabe has a corporate tax rate 22% when. So what are you, I mean I guess we could go through our views on corporate taxation.
Tax.
Yeah.
I support a relatively high corporate tax. Panama Papers show that, like, just, I mean, in general, trickle-down economics is a failure. I hope we can all come to a consensus on that. I guess with the Panama Papers, they really showed that corporations don't pay enough money, you know, in general. And I think this comes two ways. I don't think we should just raise the tax rate. I think we should make sure they actually pay their taxes as well, implement regulations that prevent, you know, scandal like the Panama Papers from occurring. And so Connor, I'm going to need a source on that says no economists support corporate taxes. So
yeah,
technically we have one here that does, but I can go through my views. I'm for a very, very low corporate tax rate. I kind of sit on the opposite perspective. I don't think the Panama Papers, I wouldn't consider them a sufficient enough reason to say that that's, you know, a reason to raise corporate tax rates, mainly because we're seeing a tax exodus like that. And I think we really just like always need to have a pro-business mindset in the United States, and every sort of economy should be.
I support business, not ethics. I'm not like, when I say high corporate tax rate, I'm not saying like a huge, you know, general. I'm just saying we should just, you know, maybe raise it by 2-3% and make sure they're actually paying their proper tax rate. That's it. I'm not a Sanders kind of like, you know, we're gonna use corporate taxes to fund free college, etc. So just want to clarify my position there, not trying to start an argument. So
no problem. I mean, I would say that the corporate tax rate in the United States, as the chat's kind of pointing out, it's kind of high right now, and not even kind of, it's definitely high right now. And I think that that's negatively impacting small businesses, which are something that I'm very pro. And I think that the corporate tax rate, even if it doesn't have a massive effect on like the genuine like feasibility of starting a business here, it's such a headline thing where you're saying, you know, oh, we're raising the corporate tax rate or something like that, that it will trigger a sort of like it'll trigger a sort of spike or drop in sort of businesses' confidence, and that behavioral economics, or, you know, behavioral business, I guess, like aspect of it is more important to me than the economics. So I think that, and the nominal, like the gains we have on corporate taxes are much lower than something we would have on like a consumption tax. So I think that, you know, the corporate tax is less so something I want to lower because I want to, you know, like cut government intervention in the economy or whatever. It's more so something that I want to lower because I think that it's something that businesses will really key in on as to, you know, when they're starting a business, or when they're, or as you mentioned, like the Panama Papers, when they're considering where to place their money, where to, you know, whether or not to evade taxes or not. So I think that it's more of a headline thing than economics type thing. So
Yeah.
oh, and yeah, I should say like I am for like making businesses pay taxes because everyone should pay what they should pay.
My stance on it is I'd actually kind of agree more with Justin because I come with a lot of people in my family do and historically have owned businesses, so I kind of have firsthand more experience, corporate taxes and the impact that they can have on like the individual companies and stuff like that. And so I would actually be in favor of more so just maintaining the current corporate tax rate in America because I mean it is pretty high. I mean, what is it? It's like
39.1%.
39.1%, maybe even lowering it a little bit because obviously also with like respect to the German model, something Germany does very well is the pro-business mindset. And because obviously in Germany there's I wouldn't say a lot of state intervention in the market, but like there's a fair amount of it, at least compared to America. But they generally, in my opinion, have a more pro-business mindset because the government encourages cooperation between like workers and businesses, as well as tries to keep lower corporate tax rates, tries to keep lower barriers to entry for new businesses. And I think that is one of the reasons that German businesses do so well, and they don't leave Germany because obviously a lot of other European countries, the businesses will leave their countries and they'll go to other countries where there's less regulation. And that's more of a problem in the Eurozone, or not Eurozone, just like in Europe in general. And that's something that doesn't really happen in Germany because of their more pro-business mindset. So I'd be more in favor of either maintaining or lowering the current corporate tax rate.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to agree with the lowering. My dad owns a couple small businesses, and he told me that he was having to send like 50% or something like that in total taxes, which to me is just not even fair. First of all, to me or anybody. But I also just think lowering taxes, I understand it's not going to trickle down, trickle down economics doesn't work, but I just think it's better. The lower taxes, I think it also keeps government spending in check, or hopefully it does. But I tend to be on the lower side of taxes than the higher side.
Well, that's good. Disagreement is healthy. Unlike Republicans, we like to debate instead of just falling in line and listening to what the God Emperor says. So that's good. I guess I'd be willing to compromise if there's a candidate that says, okay, I want to slash it down to 25%, but at the same time, I'm going to enact more tougher regulations through Glass-Steagall and Dodd-Frank and prevent another Panama Papers scandal. I would get on board with that immediately. I would see no problem supporting that. So,
yeah. That's another thing that I more so support. I wrote like a thing on this on my blog, self-advertisement, and I support more like institutional regulations rather than like individual. Obviously, taxation isn't really a regulation, but like I'd support more institutional changes to try and prevent problems in the market rather than the government having to intervene at literally every phase of market operations to make sure things run smoothly, rather just like reshape how the market actually works, like introducing like I said, I support more of a banking reform, so I think that would be a good way to restructure the monetary system to basically better the economy instead of the government having to step in every time the banks can't do what they're supposed to do.
Yes, moral hazard.
I would say that the Chicago plan would probably do the opposite of that. I mean, because if you're centralizing, basically the idea is like kind of subverting FRB or fractional reserve banking with a sort of more centralized approach to money distribution. I would say that that's you're more relying on the government being able to distribute that currency. But I mean, I suppose you'd probably be advocating other banking reforms as well. But yeah, I would say that the Chicago plan doesn't really align with that view that you just expressed.
All right. Never mind. You want to? I saw somebody was asking about the minimum wage.
Oh yeah. We should probably get on to the next question. We were talking about this now. So yeah, the minimum wage. If you guys want to.
Okay, so I don't support I think it's too late now to have a whole federal overhaul I like what individual states are doing. Like I like the whole California's doing this, Minneapolis we're implementing a $15 wage in the cities right now. So I like states testing it out and seeing how it works, but I don't support an overall broad increase.
I would say my view on the minimum wage is ideally we should have no minimum wage, but otherwise, I mean, more practically, I think an elimination of the minimum wage in the United States would probably very likely be met with a very extreme opposition and very plausibly revolution. So
no minimum wage. Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
the
that would
progressives
Seize
would
the
hang
means
you
of
for that.
production.
yeah, the Democratic Socialist Alliance would probably,
Oh,
finally
God.
round up their liberals and but I would say that like otherwise I support an inflation quarterly inflation adjusted minimum wage. And I would say that right now that kind of aligns with the 10-10 view, the $10.10 view of the minimum wage. So a mild increase, but
I
I
kind
would
of like
say
that mild increase, but state by state. I don't support a federal minimum
I
wage
would
increase.
support a more federal approach to it, mostly because I think that it's undercutting certain states would be undercutting others, and it would have a negative effect on
Like my
states that are
state.
trying to develop. Yeah, like Alabama would get like even more screwed. So I would say that. Plus, then when you have a local government, I trust local governments less than federal governments because the local governments tend to be more involved in individual businesses, and I would say that they're more privy to having to deal with their voter bases directly than a federal government, which has to kind of compromise between every single voter base. Because if you have a state where trade union interests are particularly strong, you may see a non-economically sound adjustment simply to appeal to that voter base. So I would say that tying them to individual states is kind of tedious, but I see where you're coming from. And ideally, I think that would be a good approach, but I don't know about it in practice.
Well, I think I'm kind of a compromise because I think for me also a goal is a zero, no minimum wage. But I do think states do better at looking at their individual situation. A lower cost of living state doesn't need a $15 minimum wage, whereas a higher cost of living state might need that.
Exactly,
But
I support that. So
But I
Yeah, that's
also
fair.
see
Yeah.
Justin's point of some states would just totally screw over their population. So
Yeah.
maybe you could have like just a federal, kind of like we do now, just have a federal minimum wage, kind of a low ball. You can't go below this, but you can always go more,
Yeah,
at least temporarily.
That's an interesting view. I think that would be good.
that's something I kind of support. Like a pretty low. I'd support a pretty low federal minimum wage, like maybe around. I mean, I think that Illinois' minimum wage is a pretty good standard, or
What is
maybe
it?
it's about $8.
Yeah, but relative to cost of living, I wouldn't say so.
I would say maybe like the current one to me
I don't
is
mean
not that bad.
I don't mean in Illinois. I mean like as a general standard, like as a lower
something
standard.
like
I think it would be good around set like a federal minimum wage of about $8 and have individual states negotiate that. But I also think that obviously countries like Switzerland, I'm not sure what other ones in Europe, but they can go without the minimum wage because of their collective bargaining. And I think that that's also an interesting idea. I'm not exactly sure how it would work in the United States, but I know in Europe it works pretty well. Those countries are able to go without minimum wages because of the bargaining power that unions have there.
Yeah, well, less so unions, but more like corporatist, interest groups.
Yeah.
I would say that like Swedish corporatism is like the ideal system, like I think
Yes,
objectively, but it's obviously kind of decaying over time. So I think that the real ideal is like a Nordic model type thing.
Yeah, I think that we should try to integrate that more in our current labor markets, because I feel like that's pretty lacking. Even though people always try to push that they're extremely powerful unions in America, but there really aren't, especially compared to obviously it's not a union, but it's kind of different. But you get my point. And
now I have a question: would any of y'all have any programs to replace the minimum wage, like an expanded earned income tax credit, or a
EITC,
negative
yeah.
income tax, or a universal basic income?
I would
Anything out there?
advocate EITC and the NIT kind of rolling back welfare dependency, but anything that can make, I mean, this is less so relative to the minimum wage, but I would say that we need to focus on, I think that wage supplements are important, but another thing that we need to have in our market that, as you touched on Sweden, Sweden has been implemented in the past, and like most Nordic countries, this idea of like flex security in their job market, where being unemployed isn't necessarily life shattering. So that their labor markets are much more flexible than ours in responding to economic volatility. And I think that that's really just the key thing that we can derive from, you know, the Swedish welfare state, as you know, people will call it. But it's really the key thing that we can derive is having a really flexible labor market by offering supplements to those that are unemployed, so that, you know, the benefits don't last past a reasonable period of unemployment unless you're like structurally unemployed, and you offer enough like support to show that you've been looking for jobs but you haven't been able to find one. But offering enough support in a transitionary period so someone can adjust to a different job as the labor market's adjusting. But otherwise, I think that wage supplements like the EITC and NIT are probably the best for people that actually need it, rather than having, you know, blanket welfare programs like we have now.
Yep.
I support Justin's point on this. I mean, so like, because of my social leanings, I do support welfare and other things of that. But I guess if we do want a compromising issue, I think the best place are what Justin's options are. So I will second what he said.
I will third. Or thrice, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
All right, so Connor has asked a lot of questions. Opinion on BLM, opinion on abolishing unions, opinion on the blacks.
Yeah. Macron.
God, Connor's the best.
I have some from my DMs. The two I have are one person was asking how like liberal policies versus conservative policies, which ones, like when it comes to, it's like states versus states, which ones do you support for job growth? And then the second one is abortion, just basic views on abortion. And then the third, it's not a question, but it's a comment, and somebody's saying, what am I doing with my life watching five guys discuss economics on a Friday night on Hangouts?
I should note, there's only 4 people here. So first off, can we just like rapid fire 1 sentence answer? Everybody goes. All of Connor's questions that are mildly ironic.
All right, which one are we starting with?
So first one, support
Ben's computer froze.
Okay.
Just so y'all know that.
All right, so I mean, I think we can keep going, I guess, without him. Rip Ben, everyone. Have to pay respect. So.
All right. So which question did he ask first?
Negative income tax, I think.
Okay, sorry, I'm back.
Okay, you're back. So we're just
my computer just froze.
Okay. We're just gonna rapid fire some of the questions that Connor dropped in the chat just to meme him. So the first one that he dropped is whether or not we support a negative income tax. So just like 1 sentence answer real quick, or you know, 1 or 2.
I mean, I do support a negative income tax, but I don't think it's a very viable long-term solution.
Okay, next.
Yes.
I will second the yes.
Third, that yes.
Okay. Then where are we at? Let's see. Opinion on Black Lives with an apostrophe S matter.
I mean, I support its initial goals, but I don't really support the movement as it currently stands.
I support the ideas. I feel there is a discrepancy with police violence. I do feel African Americans are treated unfairly. I do not support the vandalism and the violence by the current movement.
I second what you said, but also I think that there's a point to be made on Black Lives Matter falling to sort of its creed, like saying Black Lives Matter kind of opens it up, like only Black Lives Matter kind of opens it up to being criticized by the right, who are just looking for things to criticize, I guess.
I mean,
So
that's we can discuss that. There's a whole like I wrote a whole essay on the Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, but like that's for another time. So
yeah, it's such a polarizing issue that it's not even.
Yeah.
Well, I second what Justin said.
All right. Next comment. Opinion on bombing Iran.
Does he mean just like straight up bombing the government?
Like,
Probably.
like,
I suppose, judging from Connor's perspective, it'd probably be some sort of United Nations initiative to wipe out Iranians. So,
okay, I have to go get a charger quick, but my answer to that is no. I would rather we bomb Pakistan and Saudi Arabia and countries that actually fund Wahhabism and terrorism that affects us. But yeah, I'm gonna be checking out for a bit. I have to go grab a charger.
all right, that's fine.
yeah, I mean, obviously Iran is like a terrible country, but like you said, they don't exactly pose like a very direct threat to America. Like, I mean, sure, there's all like the hostility with the I don't think Iran ever actually got like nuclear weapons or at a mass scale. So like, if they don't really pose that much of a threat to us, so I don't really see a reason to bomb them. Like, sure, it might be nice, but I don't really see a valid reason.
All right, Kurt, here we go.
Yeah, I don't see why bombing Iran would help. I mean, possibly bombing ISIS, I'm okay with, but going into another country and just bombing, I don't know if that's
bombing ISIS, that's like, ISIS is like almost like a concept. Like, you can't even like bomb it. Like, they're not like one.
Well, and they're not really in Iran either, so.
Yeah, they're more like in Syria, I guess. Yeah, let's keep bombing Syria. That's a good idea.
So I guess no would be my answer.
My view would be probably no. I would wait until we receive actual information that they're worth bombing. But my perspective would be on focusing on governments that are really funding terrorist groups. Kind of the same thing as John, but idealistically, the entire Middle East is pretty garbage. Like,
all right, I am back. So, what is the current Connor question?
We're still talking about the same kind of question. We just finished the bombing Iran one. So the next.
Okay.
Let me find it. Iran. All right. Oh wait, Connor talked about Iran quite a bit. Where are we at?
Somebody said opinion on Macron, which I think we all here probably support him. I mean,
yeah,
I like Macron.
Opinion on abolishing unions.
Yeah.
Like,
that just triggered Ben.
It was a very pro-Europe model. Yeah, no, that's just a terrible idea. Just like,
I would support sort of replacing unions with a very, European corporatist type ideal thing.
But yeah, obviously that. But I mean, like, I think he was like getting at like abolishing the concept of like workers bargaining.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
I think that unions do more harm than help, but the help that they do is really important help. So that's the main issue, because I think,
I think that something that the German government, I think, did very well was like basically they did a very good job at, especially during the 2008 crisis, at like persuading the unions to not be as persistent
about wages.
Yeah, like that's something that Germany did very well, and that's, I think, because of the high trust between the employees and the employers, and like you said, even I'm pretty sure Germany also did that. They have
a similar welfare state type system.
Yeah, to Sweden and things like that, and so that they have a lot of good policies in that regard. I think that that's a very important thing, is that the unions, they're very important, but they also need to be monitored basically by the government and the reach that they can have over the labor market, things like that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of U.S. unions are less efficient than the European ones, so that's basically my position.
I support that as well. So yeah.
All right, next one.
Macron. I support him. I guess that's my one sentence opinion. I think I support him. So yeah.
I would say Macron is kind of my ideology. Like, he sits probably the closest to me in international politics since, Tony Blair, I guess. So, I mean...
Fishhook theory.
Macron's based. That's all I need to say.
Yeah, Macron's based.
Yeah, I like Macron.
Right.
I'm mostly just like that he pissed off like all the alt-writers.
Oh yeah. Dude, his comments on being a Roman god is so based.
Well, what did he say about like people couldn't comprehend what he was...
journalists can't comprehend
that
my
was
politics.
so awesome.
So based. He knows how to he's like he has the sort of charisma of Trump, except he can control it and he understands what he's saying. So I think that's like why he's based, is that like he doesn't come off as like a snooty politician, but like he knows his role in the like that people view him as a real bastion of like democracy or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Connor asked opinion on intersectional imperialism.
He also asked opinion
My
on
ideology.
the blacks.
Opinion on what?
Opinion on the blacks.
I, for the record, am pro the blacks.
I consider myself a personal friend of the blacks.
Yeah,
That's
Like a Donald Trump quote.
Yeah, I guess the blacks, we're good buddies. So
yeah, we're very close. I speak their language.
Oh, hey guys, I want to jump off the Connor bandwagon because we have an intelligent question for once.
Boy.
Black and Red _ Possum asks, do you think India will be a superpower by 2020? Which I guess I'll start. I think so. I actually know a lot about this because I have family members. Like I've actually been to that. I've actually been there before. Fun fact: my mom went there on a mission trip, met Mother Teresa. So that's
nice.
Yeah, so that's there. But so I guess I don't think 2020. I think that's still too far. But I think 2025, India. I think they're growing their economic powerhouse, nuclear armed state. They have a huge, very highly educated diaspora across the globe and a very highly educated population. I guess right now they're kind of under China's shell and they have to deal with Pakistan a bit, but they're getting there. They've built a bunch of carriers. They have, I think, the fourth largest army in the world. So they're doing very well on all bases: military might, economics, social policy. Social, they're a bit behind, but from what I've heard, they're basically pro-choice. Abortion is completely legal there, and they're going to be making gay marriage legal soon. So I think from that perspective, 2025, we should accept our Indian overlords soon.
Yeah, I think one of the obviously I'd agree with you, but I think that one of the major problems India is going to face is people leaving India. Like a lot of their educated people leave the country. I feel that's a big problem for them. And obviously, I feel like if they don't start improving living standards of Indians soon, then they're going to lose a lot of their educated populace.
Yeah, I definitely align more with Ben there. I am less eager about India being really a superpower because it's yet another very powerful country that's operated that's become a superpower mainly because they're able to undercut American labor because they don't have wage standards, or at least they don't have strong wage standards. And I think that we keep seeing that, and it's forcing me more and more into this like weird criticism of the United States in that their labor regulations are both like good and ideal, but it forces me to like accept this idea that like we're going to need an age where we can internationally enforce labor regulations, but we're not seeing that. And so we're seeing, international competition, as much as that matters. And international market share is kind of being eaten up by these countries that are able to undercut wage rates. And I mean, if countries like the United States aren't able to accept the fact that they need to cut their wage standards in order to compete with these countries, or compete as much as that matters. Once again, I'm not, fixed pie type of guy, but, it's kind of sad to see the United States falling behind because of something that's kind of out of the control of politics and more in the realm of people just not understanding the fact that, like, wage standards aren't really helping the U.S. as much as they think they are, because they are kind of like enslaved by this sort of money illusion, with this inability to accept the fact that inflation is kind of, or like wage inflation, inflation induced by wages, is sort of is sort of the reason that prices are higher than what would be feasible if we cut wage standards. So that was a very large rambling rant, but I think that India being a superpower is probably, it will happen probably, but I think that it's not something we should praise.
No, I don't really.
I think we could work with them more, though. Like China, see, that's the thing. Like, I completely agree with what you're saying, Justin. But when it comes to the international board, I think we can work and compromise with an Indian superpower rather than a Chinese superpower.
Yeah, I mean, would y'all consider an alliance with India if they became a superpower?
Definitely. I think we need to have much influence over their politics as possible. Not to sound like an imperialist.
A possible buffer against China and North Korea, Russia.
Strong
ally.
I think India alone is worth half of Europe just by the size of their economy, military, and their regional influence.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the chat is kind of pointing out, I'm coming off like protectionistic and very like imperialistic, but my only like concern is the fact that America is not responding to how they're seeing like the new superpowers arise. They're not responding accordingly. So that's my only issue. So, I am more for India's model of like, labor relations than I am for the United States as an ideal. But we're not going to see that kind of change in the U.S.
If we don't have any more questions, I have a question I'd like to ask.
All right.
Sure.
What do y'all think about reforming the the Southeastern Asian like trade union or whatever, like NATO, but in Southeast Asia? It's like called CEDAW or something.
What countries would we want?
I would assume Japan, South Korea, Australia, the Philippines.
That's such a diverse group, though. See, the good thing about NATO is, okay, I don't mean to sound racist here, but like with NATO, it's, except for Turkey, a lot of there's a cultural ethno identity between the Western values, Western tradition, etc. With this alliance you're describing, you have South Korea and Japan, which don't really get along and are at cultural opposites. Australia, which, I mean, they're their own thing in a lot of ways. And I think, yes, I do support a move and a reform there. However, I think it will be extremely tougher to bridge a compromise between all of these groups of countries than what we currently have with NATO.
Let me just read you who was in it. It was Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, the Philippines, Thailand, France, UK, and the US. And I think this is when I guess France and the UK had territories over there or something.
Yeah, that's so weird. Pakistan? What?
Yeah.
That's so random. What is
And also France.
Yeah. It did say Eastern Pakistan, which is Bangladesh.
Okay, so then this is from like pre-1971 then.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, this is from 1950.
It was fairly old.
Yeah, I mean, NATO's kind of my like bread and butter. It's really like the issue, like the main thing that I'm very focused on in politics. And
I think jumping off. I hate to interrupt you, Justin. Just really quick here. I think jumping off. I honestly think just having a strong alliance with India is worth more than this Southeastern.
CEDAW.
Yeah.
See, I think that NATO, I would be cautious to sort of assume your view that NATO's cultural sort of, homogeneity or homogeneity, is kind of playing a role. I would say that while NATO is guided by sort of a dedication to liberal principles, it's more so dedicated to like a geographic positioning sort of thing. I mean, it arose in response to Russia,
the Eastern Bloc.
Yeah, the Eastern Bloc. I mean, even like countries in Eastern Europe are considerably more, are not per se like homogenous to Western Europe. So, but we're still seeing, Eastern European nations that are just as dedicated to NATO because they're seeing this geographic threat that is Russia. So they're joining, places like Estonia, Lithuania. Estonia is one of the 5 countries that actually spends 2% of their GDP on defense spending. Lithuania is on their way there. All of these Eastern, and we're seeing Ukraine's kind of, flirting with joining, or they're in the MAP program or something like that. So I think that CETO, I could see, like in theory, CETO arising as a response to some sort of threat. And I think that threat, I mean, you could view it as China, but I know that China has, a lot of trade prospects with Southeastern Asian countries because they can offer such cheap goods when those countries are kind of not developing per se, but their economies aren't, as strong as China's. So I would say that CETO, to some degree, would be less advantageous as NATO in the sense that it's not going to be as strong as NATO because, there is some issue with the cultural homogeneity, or heterogeneity in Southeastern Asia. But the main issue I would have is that there's no real geographic threat in Southeastern Asia. Like
not even China.
But I would say that China, they're
less aggressive than Russia.
Yeah, they're not advocating like military. They're more like a trade war type of thing.
Yeah.
But that's not really going to help militarily. Like a military alliance won't help. I think that our main focus should be, unilaterally with India and China. If we can exert control over there, well, that was imperialist as hell. But if we can sort of exert control over India's politics, at least, I would be less wary of them becoming a superpower.
Or at least be friendly.
Yeah, at least, know that their interests aren't in undercutting us.
Yes.
I think the only way that could, ever since the Osama bin Laden raid, I think because of our sour relations with Pakistan for sheltering bin Laden, I think our relationship with India has grown more. I think it grew a lot under Obama. And Trump, I found this really interesting. Like, he was super, I hate Muslims and everything, but, he was really trying hard to get, the Indian American vote. Like, he made some weird videos about, and he really likes their current prime minister, who I believe is a nationalist over there. So even under Trump, I think relations will be strong moving forward. So, yeah, next question, or Connor is just, I don't know what he's doing.
I would say next question.
Okay. I don't really see anything. I see Gabe saying enslaved by the money illusion.
Oh, yeah.
He says you're a communist. I guess the only question I have from my DMs is abortion, but unless we can save that for last if there's any more econ questions there. So.
Okay. I mean, I know Gabe had something on the UBI that we never really touched on, but I think pretty, aligned in that view. So if you guys want to, go over your stances on the universal basic income real quick.
I guess I'll start. I don't like it. Why give money to someone who makes, over $1 million a year, for one? And two, I don't think it solves the problem of the current problem with our welfare system, with welfare clips and the lack of personal responsibility. I think a negative income tax gives you more of an incentive to work and eventually get off of government, at least that type of welfare, and start your own business or work, make your own money, not be dependent.
I just want to interject here just quickly. Can you define personal responsibility? Is that getting a job? Is that getting off of welfare? Is that
I would say it's being able to take care of yourself without the help of anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, because the Washington posted a whole study on this. I'm pretty sure it's 92% of welfare recipients have a job, and a lot of them are employed and actively seeking work. So in a lot of cases, I understand what you're saying, but this whole lazy welfare.
Oh yeah, I don't
that's
believe
not-
that.
And
at
I would
all.
say that that's
I know
not
it's
even
not true.
good. The point of welfare was to be, I mean, it wasn't to be sort of like Europe, but it was to make sure unemployment wasn't bad. And so if we're seeing welfare as a wage supplement, it's certainly less effective than something like an EITC, which will benefit people who are not welfare, but like a UBI type system, something like an EITC, which will proportionally benefit poor people more than like a UBI, which benefits people in a blanket aspect, but isn't adjusted to people who actually need it.
Mm-hmm.
So Ben, if you want to go over,
Sure. I mostly I guess I would support more the negative income tax because I think that what Kurt was saying, I think that it does give more of a responsibility kind of thing, to encourage people to get off. Because I think, like, especially in Europe, I feel like it's kind of a problem, or at least used to be a problem. That's not so much anymore, at least in Germany specifically, that, there would be a lot of people who would stay on welfare or at least have a hard time getting off of welfare. And I feel like a negative income tax would basically help that process out a little bit more.
Yeah,
obviously, negative income tax wasn't implemented in Germany, but they had kind of things to make up for that. But yeah.
A lot of the issue in Europe was as they saw generational change, and this kind of falls into what RealisticKeyesian was talking about, that sort of the next generations viewed welfare as sort of more of a commonplace type thing. It's like, oh yeah, you're on welfare, like everyone's on welfare here, and so people took less responsibility in signing up for welfare programs, and there was just a cultural shift to where the normalization of welfare as a system didn't bode well. So I think that if we're going to enact any sort of UBI system, it has to be accompanied with a sort of cultural view that, this is for people who need it, and this is a system that we're all going to contribute to because we agree that, helping the poor is a good thing that we all agree with, which isn't true in this country, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel like that the negative income tax to do that the best,
because it's the government deciding, like, this is the system that will best allocate this, which is a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, and it's people, they're paying into, at least it feels more like you're directly paying into, because, like, if you obviously qualify for the negative income tax, then you're not paying taxes, but everyone else is. So, like, you kind of, I don't know, you feel more like you're paying into the system, so for the benefit of the lower people, and you don't want to become one of the lower people kind of thing, to reinforce that cultural thing.
I did an essay on the negative income tax.
It's on my website.
Yes, I mean...
Actually, that's one of them that I forgot to migrate over to WordPress, which I will do tonight.
No problem.
Yeah, I support the current chat's consensus. I don't really support the UBI in its current state. I'm more leaning towards the negative income tax. However, Justin, if we do have the cultural reforms that you did stated, I would be on board. So yeah.
I don't think the cultural reforms will happen, or at least not soon.
Like Sweden, like they tried for a really long time. They sort of neglect.
Your mic is kind of.
Mr. Robot over there.
Oh,
yeah.
Is it better now, or?
It's like robot-y.
Is that better?
No. Let's try unplugging and plugging it back in.
Yeah, I'll be back in a sec.
So, if anybody wants to take over.
All right. Let's see. Any questions here?
I think Justin will finish something on the negative income tax.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, does anybody else want to add something on that? I think
better?
we're all in agreement.
Yeah.
You're back.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just finish my point. Yeah, Sweden for a long time kind of neglected the idea that their welfare state wasn't working because of the generational change. So they tried to enact sort of things that would influence their sort of cultural approach to welfare towards the idea, like the ideal responsibility type approach, which didn't work because they had to shift away from that system. Well, and they have a very moderate form of that same system now, but it's still very implausible to say that something like a cultural reform would be practical.
Gabe said a GMI, or a guaranteed minimum income. I mean, I still think the negative income tax is more efficient. At
Yeah,
least
I
in my
don't think
research, it is.
I don't think we have to touch on that. I think we're
Yeah.
all kind of for the NIT and stuff like that.
Um,
So are there any topics we want to move to, or?
The only one I have is abortion still, but that's more of a social thing. We can move to that when all the econ stuff is covered. How long did you guys want to go, by the way? Just curious.
I can stop whenever you guys want to stop, because I know you guys have stuff that you have to get to.
Yeah, I may have to go soon because it's getting kind of late. But
Yeah.
Wait, are you all CST?
Yeah, I'm Central.
yeah.
Oh, so 12. Okay, yeah, so we're on the same. Okay, I guess we can just go over abortion quick.
Oh, well, Connor has one question.
All right, never mind.
He wants us to touch on why Ha-Jun Chang is so stupid.
Oh.
And I know that's going to trigger Ben. It doesn't trigger me.
I like Ha-Jun.
I don't like Ha-Jun.
I like Ha-Jun. I mean, I'm not a protectionist. I like his historical work. I'm a big fan of economic history. So
I am too, but I think Ha-Jun Chang is wrong. I mean,
you can email him. He has a public email. I'd love to see you email him, Justin, and see what he says back.
That'd be good. I'd like to debate Ha-Jun Chang. No, I definitely. For the record, I would lose in a debate to Ha-Jun Chang because I'm not.
Well, yeah, anyone would lose into a debate with anyone.
Yeah, because
you'd probably lose in a debate with like an Austrian economist. But
I don't know now. They're kind of crazy.
Yeah, Austrians I could probably.
Okay, maybe like Bob Murphy you could probably take on.
I will debate Hoppa live.
I will.
But I just reread or kind of like finished reading Ha-Jun's book, Kicking Away the Ladder. I think that some of his work actually does shed some pretty important light on how countries have historically dealt with trade problems.
Yeah, and I think a historical analysis of markets from a critical perspective is definitely important. Mostly because like my views are very I think that Marx is a very important sociologist in the sense that his criticism of capitalism is absolutely necessary because otherwise we wouldn't have sociologically analyzed capitalism the way we did because of Marx. And that was more on Marx, but I think that Ha-Jun Chang sits in sort of the same vein, less important, but his criticism is okay to have even if it's wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah.
As you said.
All right. Do we want to move on then?
Yeah, this seems like that's going to be about it.
Or do we want to talk about abortion real quick? Or yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I made a post on abortion. I mean, I've just said I'm pro-choice until brain activity starts.
Woohoo! Thank you, Kurt. You are on the side of science.
Thank you.
I haven't looked into the topic very much, but I mean, yeah.
I've devoted a year to this topic, so I am the residential Instagram expert on abortion.
So you're like abortion economics.
Yeah, abortion and economics. A residential.
Well, okay, I am a bioethics major, and my current job is at a medical clinic too. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You should make that your username, abortion economics.
Abortion.
Oh my goodness. All right, but I guess so. I'll go over my position really quick. So I support. Yeah, I'm like Kurt. Support till brain activity, which by the way doesn't show up till 28 till 36 weeks. That is kind of the time frame. So, and by the way, this is supported by. Let's see. I have the list of schools that medical schools that support this. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Mayo Clinic, Princeton University, the National Congress of Obstetricians Gynecologists, the American Medical Association, American Reproductive Association, Notre Dame, Columbia, Yale. So you get the point. This is basically universally endorsed. It's known as the EEG theory because that's what they use to detect brainwaves.
Yep, that's the theory I've read.
Yeah, so that's kind of what is supported on this.
Actually, because of your post, actually.
Yeah. Fun fact: I debated what's his name, Brian and Spencer, on this live on Hangouts. It was actually a really fun debate. So, but yeah, so that's basically my position on it. Kurt shares my position, but if Justin and Ben want to give your thoughts, that'd be cool too.
I sit in the same vein, pretty much. I think that abortion is not. I mean, it's a. I think that the starting line is science. We look at, how science works because that tends to be good. Um, and then off of that, we can kind of apply philosophy to it to some degree. And I think that, um, the major consensus should be like, you shouldn't kill people, right? Like, and I strongly believe that if there's no brain activity in a person, you can't be a person. Like, it's not, you have to be able to consider like sensations at the very minimum, and even at like the level of a fetus's like fetal brain activity, it's like, it's ambiguous as to whether or not, philosophically you should even consider that personhood. But
that's the thing. It's like when I debated on this, like I get people to concede that at the end of the day, there's no scientific reason to be pro-life, because the science. It's the philosophy, which is all murky. But a lot of philosophical writers like David Bonin and others. What's his name? Krugman has actually written something on this too. His essay was really cool on it. He's on the same boat, the brainwave theory, but he actually talks about that because implementing abortion restrictions has such a devastating economic impact, and it doesn't reduce abortion rates at all, that by default those who are pro-life should be pro-choice, just because pro-choice policies actually reduce abortion. So that
was my main operating point from like before I accepted the scientific consensus, is that like economically abortion is like correct. Like, you can't force low-income people into having children, because having children is like the most expensive thing you can do besides like buying an island. So it's, you can't. So there's a reason that abortion, and like this is always a point that the right brings up, that abortion disproportionately affects low income brackets. It's because that's what abortion is for. Ideally, it's for people who can't feasibly have a child but have been victim to the mistake that is like conceiving a child when you don't mean to, which is a reality that a lot of parents have to face, or I guess not parents, that was bad, which is a reality that a lot of people have to face. That's unfortunate, but we have ways to deal with it. And I don't know, this weird personal responsibility guilt trip that rightists always bring up is like really dumb, because when you have a child and you cope with that mistake, it's not like you're going, oh, well, I can change from this mistake. You have a child now. Like, I mean, maybe you'll make the decision to have safe sex in the future, but your life's already like drastically changed. And so if you're, forced to have that child, it's like, it's not even worth the personal responsibility, guilt trip that rightists seem to always bring up about abortion.
So, okay, I don't want to generalize the entire pro-life stance, but like it's 95% religious, and soon it will be 100% religious once I'm done corresponding with Secular Pro-Life, their national organization. I emailed them a 29-page essay, or like not even an essay, a report with 30 citations from all these medical schools and a whole case on the EEG argument. And they responded with 4 pages saying, you need to read some science textbooks, and you don't know how to define a human being. And this is a doctor telling me this, and I'm just like, after face palming for a while, I am in the process of writing another response back to them, which is already at 20 pages, explaining why they're wrong and why textbooks don't actually say that. But yeah, just some fun facts. I actually thought that this was interesting, and I think I will say this because I think it reflects in this group chat. Support for abortion is not based on gender. Like many people think women support abortion just because. It's actually based on how intelligent you are. Studies show that the more educated and the more intelligent you are.
As a joke.
So, no, this is actually true.
Yeah, no,
50.
Yeah, trigger Connor probably.
Yeah, so there's a survey done on this, and I think 53% of those who had a high school degree or less identified as pro-life. So the majority of those people, the majority of the people who identify in that position literally have a high school degree or less. I think that says a lot about the state of the pro-life movement in the United States. It will be a non-issue. I think in about 4 or 5 years, the nation is already overwhelmingly pro-choice, and it's moving that way. And I think most, in our government, most economists are pretty much universally pro-choice. I guess there's a few like odd ones that are like pro-life for some reason, but nobody cares about them. But I think it's a done and done issue. But no, I am glad, despite our economic disagreements, I'm glad we all support the brainwave theory, because I get a lot of pro-choicers who are like, bodily autonomy, my body, my choice. And I'm like, no, that's I understand the value of that argument, but if you really want to succeed, if you really want to succeed, brainwaves is the way to go. So I am glad we all support that.
When you bring up the my body, my choice argument, all the Reddites will say, oh, that's not your body, that's a baby. So I mean, it's a really refutable thing.
Yeah. Well, also, most of those 52% are religious and believe that there's a dude in the sky. So it kind of reflects a lot if you think about it. But an argument I heard a lot of, especially y'all probably know Minarchy on Instagram.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
I put, I said that zygote is less of a person than a tree, which, as you can guess, probably triggered him. And his argument, which I think is a common one, is that, well, a zygote has human DNA. But I think the greatest way to refute that is if we found an alien race with no human DNA, but it exhibited personhood, would it be considered a person?
Kurt, I have a very easy way to refute that. I will send this to you if you want. Did you know warts have a unique genetic combination and are also human, are technically human and have a unique genetic combination? So under that, if we're going to argue DNA, then why aren't we giving warts personhood, rights, because they have unique DNA?
Mainly because I didn't know that.
And another thing is
this is a textbook. This isn't me. It's like literally. Yeah, I will send that to you as ASAP. I wrote a whole thing on this. See, that's the thing. People always bring up the textbook argument, like, oh, a bunch of textbooks say this. One, textbooks actually don't say that. And two, textbooks say other things, like cancer cells are human beings based on that, because cancer cells are human. Warts are human. Skin cells are also human with a unique, genetic, because so I guess itching yourself is now considered genocide. So that really doesn't. It just like the pro-life cause does not have an argument. Oh, and two, one thing, I don't know if you guys have run into this, but a lot of people will cite this link from Princeton.edu, and it has a bunch of like old textbooks from the 1970s, 80s. That's not actually from Princeton. I actually emailed Princeton University using my research credentials, and I showed them the links. I'm like, is this Princeton University? Is this something else? And they replied back to me saying that those websites are not endorsed by Princeton's, and those websites are from their student pro-life view group and do not reflect the views of the university. So if any of you run into that, just DM me. I'll send you the screenshots of the email correspondence I had with them, and that should shut down that argument pretty fast.
So you seem to have done your research when it comes to abortion.
Oh, yeah, man. You can ask a lot of people. I will just say the pro-choice movement before I joined Instagram was pretty shitty. Now we have the upper edge. I will say I have whole group chats on the pro-life side just dedicated to talking about how annoying and how evil I am. And I've been blocked. I've been blocked by, let's see, about 90% of pro-lifers on Instagram. So, like, literally, I will comment on it. Like, I remember one person, a pro-lifer I'm friends with, like, commented, like, posted the whole Princeton thing because she was like, okay, I don't want people citing Princeton and then getting called out and looking like dumbasses. And then I think a pro-lifer with 6,000 followers who hates me says, why are you talking to that evil scum? He is pure evil. He is rejecting.
He's a baby killer.
Yeah, he's a baby killer. He's a Satanist. And it's like,
he eats babies.
So, no, I love it. I love it, man. And then I think the climax of my pro-choice career on Instagram was debating Brian and Spencer, the former admin of Conservative Patriot Live on abortion. And I will say I did a pretty good job in that debate. So, yeah.
All right. I think we've touched on pretty much every topic we could across the spectrum. So I figured it's about time to round it down. If you guys want to take like a minute to plug your social medias, your activist initiatives, your revolutionary groups, whatever you want,
All right, so I'll go first. To all my followers in the chat, this is the first time thing. I'm not a regular host of this show, but this is a very awesome show. I recommend you follow every member in this chat for more.
The show technically doesn't exist. It's just a chat, but yeah, I'll give you.
Okay. In my story, I put the names up in my story. Please follow Justin, Kurt, and Ben for more political and original content, which I know you will enjoy. For the new viewers who don't know me, I have 3 Instagram accounts. My main one, personal one, is at RendezvousWithReason. Follow me there. My other main account, which I basically run solo now, is Atheist Academy. Follow me there too. And my third new personal initiative is at Faithless Opposition, where I write tons of essays on religion, arguments, etc. My 2 other accounts are meme accounts. I just post memes. Don't let your dreams be memes. And then my 3rd account, Faithless Opposition, I post a lot more. I post a lot more essays and arguments and evidence-based. So if that's your thing, follow me there. Anyway, thank you. I'd just like to thank Justin and the rest of the squad for having me on. And
thanks for
you know what to do. Follow me there.
All right, if you Ben, you want to go? I guess.
Just say so follow me, LeftEconomics on Instagram and YouTube. I haven't made a video in over a month, but I'm currently working on the response to that Austrian dumb guy who doesn't really understand Keynesianism.
Vancouver?
No, there's an Austrian on YouTube named Trudeau Tom.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Kurt, if you want to plug your stuff then.
Yeah, it's just my name on the title. And I'm doing a essay series on debunking Austrian economics. So if you want to see some prime roasting going on, you can head over.
You're gonna trigger half of conservative Instagram, so
that's why it's going to be fun. Triggering conservatives is a million times more fun than triggering liberals.
Yeah, definitely.
And I would recommend following everybody else. They seem pretty intelligent, and just learn economics.
That's a good takeaway.
Oh, I'm curious. So, are you guys econ majors? I know Justin's still in high school, but what about the rest of you?
I'm 16, also in high school, but I plan on being a computer science.
Yeah, I plan on going into economics as well.
Well, I'm in high school. I plan on going on economics, but I read economics books once a month. So
awesome! Guys. I highly recommend you guys take AP. I took AP Macro, Micro, got 5s on both. It was really helped me get a step up from my freshman year, already dealing with economic theory and higher level courses. I can just say as an econ major myself, you guys will love it. Oh, quick thing though. Take the bachelor's in science. Take bachelor's business econ. Don't take the bachelor in arts econ. That's
I was going to do business.
Yeah, so business econ is the more I guess business econ tends to be a bit more conservative. Liberal econ is where you find the Sanders supporters doing in the bachelor's of arts, but business econ is the way to go. So yeah.
Yep.
All right. You guys can find me on YouTube at Excogitatus. Hit the subscribe button down below. That sounded very pluggy. You guys can hit up my website for blog posts, essay posts, stuff like that, which is excogitatus.com, EXCOGITATUS. Hit me up on Instagram at excogitatus and on Twitter at excogitatusreal. Thanks for stopping by. My first broadcast on my channel. I'll have more content to come in the ensuing weeks. I have some videos in the works, and I have a new essay series on breaking down Keynesian economics that will be coming up on my website. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, thanks for watching. It's been great fun. Follow all these other people and learn economics.